It's time for Twit This Week in Tech. Great panel for you. In Gadgets, Devendra Hardawar is here. And Daniel Rubino from Windows Central. And we celebrate Father's Day with an actual father, Father Robert Palliser, the digital Jesuit. Microsoft says, what? I don't recall. The Stanford Internet Observatory is being shut down for, I think, shameful reasons. How Apple found a path to Apple intelligence, and the passing of a true computer pioneer, but a woman many of you have never heard of. I know I hadn't. It's all coming up next on Twit.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is Twit, This Week in Tech, episode 984, recorded Sunday, June 16th, 2024. 53 clicks. It's time for Twit, This Week in Tech, the show where we cover the week's tech news. It was a very busy week, so we've brought in the heavy hitters. Devendra Hardawar is back from Cupertino, dressed in his, what is that?
It's the clothes of my god, Kirby, Nintendo's Kirby. My kids got me a Kirby shirt for Father's Day.
I love it.
I'm here on live stream with it.
So I remember when your first was born and you were a brand new father. How old is it?
That was 5 years ago.
5 years. Wow. Devendra, of course, senior editor of Engadget, one of our favorite people, so much so he's often a fill-in when I'm out of town. Thank you for being here, Devendra. We love
always fun
having you on.
Happy to join you guys.
Happy Father's Day. It's very nice of you to come on a Father's Day. It really is.
It's great.
That's
it's
a
great.
sacrifice.
We had our celebration. The kids are sick of me now, so this is
okay,
perfect.
good.
Yeah.
Great. In that case, great. Also here, Daniel Rubino, who is a dog father and editor-in-chief of Windows Central. Hi, Daniel.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Great to see you. You've got Craig Federighi's hair. Did you borrow that for the show, or?
I'm getting there. I gave up on getting haircuts. They're they're too expensive.
We Italians are known for our lush locks. That's all I'm saying.
That's the other thing. Yeah, like I'm getting to that age. I'm like, you know what? I still have it.
I love it.
I'm just going to grow it out.
Yes,
I just enjoy it, you know?
It's actually gorgeous. So keep up the good work. Yeah. And then there's another father on the show for Father's Day, Father Robert Palliser, whose locks are not exactly blowing in the wind.
They're not.
Great to see you.
I'm also wearing a Kirby shirt. This is Kirby in his later years. It's very dark.
Kirby after he became a priest. Father Robert is in the Vatican right now, and just a few steps below him, Jason Howell, who's visiting.
He is visiting, although I asked him to come up, but he has an early morning appointment at the Coliseum tomorrow with his family.
Oh, fun.
They just got off the plane, and he's a little bit tired.
Yeah.
He's a tiny bit tired.
It's later. It's like 11 o'clock at night, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So it's later there. Well, that's great, though, that he could stay in the house with you and enjoy Rome. Rome is my favorite city. I adore it, and I hope he has a great time there.
We already have an appointment tomorrow. We were going to come up on the roof once the sun starts to go down, and we're going to have wine and aperitivos watching the sun go down over St. Peter's.
Oh, so jealous. That is awesome. All right. Well, I don't know where to start. I guess the week started with Apple's big event. It's funny how here we are 7 days later, and it's like, oh, what was that? It kind of wears off.
I was there, and I feel that way.
Do you?
Like, oh, wow, what happened? Yeah, I was there for 3 days.
They did a 2-hour keynote, which we streamed live with Micah. And first hour and a half, do not mention AI. But it's also really interesting because everything they're talking about seems to be, or many of the things they're talking about seems to be AI-driven. They're just not saying it. And then they Sherlocked AI by saying, you know what AI stands for? Apple Intelligence. And I thought that was brilliant. That was a very smart branding move. Did you get to play with anything afterwards, Devendra?
I mean, they showed me things hands off. I saw some demos. Like I saw, I think I saw the Siri in action. Some of those features, like it's cool. It looks really cool. And having covered pretty much all the major like AI releases so far, I think it's the most interesting one and the one that could be the most beneficial to actual consumers. So that's fun. I will point out, though, Leo, I've asked a ton of people at Apple, pretty much everybody I encountered, like, how do you shorten Apple Intelligence? And as soon as I asked that question, the programming in their brains just like shut down, because they will not say AI.
They don't want to say the word. They will not say
artificial intelligence. So like the corporate command was clearly, this is not AI. Don't say AI, even though those are the initials they stole, basically. So I found that funny. I wrote that up in Gadget. But yeah, Apple doesn't call it AI or anything shorter than Apple Intelligence.
That's the short version. Wow.
That's the short version. Somebody called it personal intelligence, which is actually longer. So good job, Apple. Yeah.
Let's add a syllable. But yeah. I have to say, I thought it was very smart of them. They had we talked about this last week before the event, and I was saying they've got a very narrow path here. They don't want to look like they're just saying copycats, me too. But at the same time, they don't want to look like they're laggard either, because clearly the stock market is rewarding companies that have AI anywhere near them. I mean, just look at NVIDIA. So they had to do something that was, I thought, challenging and maybe even not even possible, but they did it. I thought. I was very impressed. Now, none of the things they showed are going to be available. They're not available even when it comes out in the fall. It probably is going to be later this year or maybe even early next year, for instance.
That was the latest Gurman report. That Siri, especially the Siri stuff, looks the coolest and maybe delayed a bit. But I just wanted to point out, like, this is what Apple does, right? Except at hyper speed. They weren't the first MP3s. They weren't the first to smartphones. And this kind of seems like that playbook, in action. The last year must have been so frustrating, though, because these folks had neural engines in their processors since 2017. And now the phrase is AI PC because they've got MPUs. But Apple's over there in the corner saying, hey, we've been doing this. We've done it. We just didn't say those same things. So they were really like victims of the AI hype cycle as well, I think, over the last year.
Those were the after Tim Cook finished the ad for Apple TV shows. the completely superfluous, having nothing to do with developers ad for Apple TV shows. Almost the very first words out of his mouth were, we've been doing this for a long time. It's true that Apple iPhones, ever since Apple Silicon, have had neural processors. They call it machine learning, dedicated hardware for machine learning. They're very well positioned.
I mean, Qualcomm's done that too, though, right? Qualcomm's been there for over a decade using the same technology. So they're all just part of that. They're just, they are trying to like kind of catch up to what has now become AI PC, right? This idea of like generative on a computer has become a little bit more interesting, especially for video creation, right?
So this isn't, because I thought the Snapdragon X architecture was the first to have NPUs. You're saying Qualcomm has always had NPUs, but on the obviously on phones, right?
Yeah. But even the Surface Pro 9 with the Snapdragon 8cX Gen 3, that has an NPU that's as powerful as Intel's current processors on the market.
Which is more something about Intel than it is about Qualcomm.
Right, that chip was also awful. Like, I reviewed that computer, and I was so pissed off that Microsoft called that machine a Surface Pro 9 5G. Sir, there is nothing pro about you. You're slow. You don't run as fast as the other Surface Pro. It was very confusing to consumers and branding and everything. And yeah, that was super annoying.
Well, Qualcomm, this is one of the reasons we held our breath when Qualcomm said, wait till you see this. It's faster than an M3, blah, 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 because they have disappointed before. But now, June 18th is the nominal day that we're going to see these. You probably already have some data. Okay. Are you under embargo right now? You probably can't talk about it.
It's been a messy embargo. Let's just say that. Yep. And it has to do with Copilot, and specifically Recall, has been screwing things up for reviewers. That said, the 18th, we will have coverage of some of these devices.
Okay. Nothing to say.
I will say it's just it's looking very positive. Like I think people are waiting to catch Qualcomm in a lie.
Because they have done it so many times before.
That's all they do. Yeah.
But not this time.
And to be fair, to be fair, they were using ARM limited, processor designs,
right?
And because ARM, as a company who designs the chips, couldn't design something that could compete with the M series, they had no choice but to do the best they could with what they had. Them going and buying Nuvia.
Nuvia.
Well, they bought Nuvia. Yeah. So now Nuvia's ex-Apple engineers, the ones that designed the A series chips that led to the M series. And they started as a company building server chips. That was their goal. They were going to build ARM-based server chips. And from what I'm hearing, this actual first design is a server-based design. And I hear Gen 2 is actually going to be the bigger one, the more interesting one, because that's actually going to be the real mobile first chip. Now, they're not talking about Gen 2 at all because they want to get Gen 1 out the door. But I'm already hearing great things about Gen 2 because I'm hearing there's this question is Gen 2 just going to be like a spec bump, right? Or is it going to be significantly something different? And I'm hearing significantly something different. I'm hearing it's a no jump and it's going to be a big performance increase too. So, but now ARM is really upset. So all these companies have been kind of battling with this NPU stuff for a while. It's just now we have a use for it, and the usage cases for it, I think, is growing exponentially.
I think that's really been Apple's specialty here, right? Like we've talked about, Qualcomm's talked about NPUs. Apple's had this stuff for a while too. But even back in 2017, Apple, it was applied to functional things like computer vision technology stuff happening in your photo library. And now that's essentially where they've aligned all of the Apple intelligence tools. It's stuff you can use. It's making Siri smarter, transcribing notes and voice memos, doing a little bit of text cleanup in your email or something. Not hey, here's a search engine that can write things for you or create images for you. That is a part of it. But Apple's it's very far off, and they could cut that tether to OpenAI whenever they wanted to. So kind of a really smart implementation of AI so far.
How's it very different? Is it much different though than Samsung's AI? Because on the S24 Ultra, they have I don't know, 6 or 7 areas where it integrates with, including does the notes and translation stuff.
This all feels yeah, it's Copilot. Yeah, but I do think Apple has at least thought about it a little more. It's that thoughtfulness that we talk about. I don't want to be a fanboy here because I cover and I use both Windows PCs and Apple stuff too. My main desktop is Windows, and that's where I live most of my computing life. But it is nice to see a company kind of look at what everybody did over the last year. Microsoft just announced the Bing chat and went all in on Copilot, and I think a lot of us were what is happening? Why is Microsoft, this company that is now invested pretty much half into OpenAI, leaning putting all their stuff into this technology, which is unproven, and nobody's really asking for this. The Apple approach at least seems a little more thoughtful and slower, and maybe they'll be criticized for it. I think the stock market didn't like that, but
actually, wait a minute, the stock market didn't like it day of. We were watching it because I mentioned this on Sunday. I said, watch how the stock market responds. Day of, it was kind of up and down, but mostly down. The next day, Apple had its best day in 2 years and soared above NVIDIA again. It was a very big, I don't know what the latest is. I didn't watch the rest of the week, but it was clear that at first the market was suspicious, but after they thought about it for a day, they very much embraced the Apple approach. Father Robert, do you have an opinion on that?
That's just the market.
That's just the market. And I don't know if I believe in the wisdom of the crowd and all of that. Currently, Apple's down a little bit, but let's look at the 5 days. So you can see the jump we look that. At.
Yeah, they're significantly up, though. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, they're way up. Yeah.
When we try to explain the current AI craze to people who are less tech savvy over here, one of the things that we try to emphasize is all the NPUs from basically every manufacturer are good at one thing, which is pattern and object recognition. That's what they do. They're a very specialized processor, even more specialized than a GPU. Now, what you do with the pattern or the object that you recognized, how you transform it, how you correlate it to something else, that's the secret sauce behind every manufacturer's AI approach. But the core processing, that object recognition that has to happen at the beginning, they basically operate the same way across the industry. Now, what Apple is doing, and I think I actually kind of like their approach, is rather than trying to focus on, oh, we do AI and it can do so many different things, they're actually defining the objects that they're interested in. That's actually a novel approach right now in the AI market, which is you have a manufacturer who isn't just saying, we might be able to do a bunch of really interesting things, and then you've got Apple saying, we want to do these 6 things specifically. I kind of like that.
I also want to point out, because Mashed Potato in our Club Twit Discord is saying, isn't it a bit early to declare Apple's AI a success? That's really not at this point what we're talking about. We're talking about marketing. Apple's marketing seems to have trumped everybody else's. Whether they produce is a whole different story. We haven't even seen these Copilot Plus PCs yet. So
we have seen Copilot in action for the last year, and also Copilot Pro, which
and
is their paid
OpenAI's chat, and
a lot of it's cool. But it's like, what am I doing with this cool AI generated? What do I do with this? How does this help my life?
But that's part of, isn't that the part of the process within technology like this is the technology is invented. Now what do we do with it is, you know, we smashed the atom. Now what do we do with it? It took a few years.
Totally is. It totally is, except like Microsoft within a year was like, hey, this is in Windows now. This is in Office. This is in everything. We love Copilot. We love OpenAI. 6 months ago, you know, before that thing was announced, nobody knew what this was.
Well, it was very good for Microsoft stock.
It was good.
I have to point out that there has been, now it is a mark on their escutcheon. In fact, there's a third step in the recall debacle. First, they announce recall, something that takes a snapshot of everything you do on a Copilot Plus PC every few seconds, saves it all for you for AI to search later. So you can say, hey, what were we talking about last week or whatever? Security community goes ballistic. Microsoft says, sorry, we're going to make it opt-in, and we're going to add some nice, you can't access it until you verify using our Hello security and so forth. And apparently that wasn't enough, because they've now said, never mind, we're not going to ship it with the Copilot Plus PCs. Only for Windows insiders down the road. This is, to me, this is a perfect example of, and we've seen it in many other cases, Google showing, the Black Pope. A lot of these companies have gotten in trouble.
Well, all the Bard issues, like the day they announced that thing, because they had to respond to Microsoft.
It hallucinated the day they released it. Yeah. So Apple still hasn't released anything. So there's not, they have, for instance, a new image, an app that's going to be on all your Apple devices that will make images. We don't know. Day 2, it might start showing the founding fathers in a different light. It may be declared woke. We don't know. So right now we're just rating the marketing.
And also, like what they're saying, I think there are things we're talking about, like Apple saying, like, we have built our own, like a small model that is on your phone. Our cloud model is supposedly secure, and that the way they've talked about their cloud model, it sounds better, or at least more secure than other solutions we've seen. When they do work with OpenAI, Apple has said, like, it is anonymized to the point where it's like the most secure way of using ChatGPT.
I don't think that convinced Elon Musk. We've all seen his knee-jerk reaction was, if Apple puts OpenAI on iPhones, then we are going to ban iPhones from all of our facilities. If you come if you come to the front door with an iPhone, we will take it from you and put it in a Faraday cage until you leave. That might have been a little overreaction on Elon's part, because he's not a fan
especially since, like, to be fair, like, it's not like Android. It's known for the world's best security. Like, I mean, it already has Gemini on it. It has all this stuff. Right. So I just I mean, fair, the media jumps on this. We covered it too, because it's kind of funny, but that dude just says stuff all the time and doesn't do it, right?
You can just say
he's not going to ban Apple products.
He's
not,
idiot
right?
Sometimes, and I don't know what's happening with him.
Yeah, he's not going to ban Apple products. He's not going to make his own phone alternative either. And if he does, it's guaranteed to fail. But we eat the stuff up.
But it will be stainless steel. I mean, who doesn't want stainless steel?
It'll probably cut you when you go to use it, every time you use it. Yeah,
it's great news copy, though, and I fell for it, and I reported it. Sorry.
Yeah,
by the way,
we did too.
His shareholders did give him his bonus of 40. I think it ended up being $46 billion. Even though a judge in Delaware had said, no, there's no way Elon's worth that. That was an unfair process. The board voted it to him. So he went to the shareholders, and the shareholders said, no, we love you. Keep the money. So there you go. That's the entire thrust of the Elon reportage.
Please keep tweeting. Please keep saying the first thought in your mind without any research whatsoever. We love it. Here's billions, tens of billions of dollars.
Leo, there actually is another angle to the AI story from Apple Intelligence and Microsoft, which is basically what Apple's trying to do with Apple Intelligence is what Microsoft was trying to do with Recall, which is to solve a very early AI problem that we brought up on the show multiple times, and that's poisoning the well.
Right.
All AI is susceptible to having crap information. Well, what Microsoft was trying to do with Recall was to silo information from a user so that that particular AI only learns from that user's data. Apple's trying to do the same thing with Apple Intelligence. So at some point, they have to explain that to people. They have to say, look, the only way we can keep you from getting an AI that has gone insane or become racist is to train it only on your data. They just haven't done a really good job of explaining that yet.
And that's where Microsoft screwed up here. Like I tweeted out even about how Microsoft's PR reaction, when I was in Taipei and I was talking to companies off the record, like they were all just throwing Microsoft on the bus on this. They were just like, they had to field questions from analysts and just people. And it was just like, I don't know how at Microsoft they just, granted, they said, okay, it's all processed locally. It doesn't go to the cloud. Fair. And that's a huge thing, right? That does make a difference. But going into the details about the rest of the security and how it worked or didn't work was one of those things. 2 days later, day and a half later, they had an FAQ page that kind of explained all this. That should have been out day one. In fact, what they should have done is before they announced this, they should have pre-briefed the media with like a whole hour deep dive into it, explain how it works, how the security works, answer any questions. So when media went to press, they would have all those answers in front of them and be like, yeah, you may be concerned about the security, but not always at localized, but it's encrypted all the time. It's only decrypted when it scans your face. And like, at least the media then would have done the heavy lifting. Now Microsoft is backtracking on this and trying to explain it and make up things and like, oh, it's opt-in now. And it just looks bad. And I don't know how that happens.
It's hubris, isn't it? It's like Microsoft thinking everybody loves us now. We got Copilot, we got OpenAI. Everybody loves Microsoft. Yeah. Here is the thing where if Microsoft had announced this 5 years ago, we would have had like tanks pointed at Redmond or something. Like, what are you trying to do to our computers, Microsoft? You were totally right, Daniel, that they should have like pre-briefed people and also like had deeper conversations, but they should have been talking to security researchers in depth as this thing was being built, which it really sounds like, again, like that's something Apple literally said, like, hey, the software that they're using on the private cloud is out there for researchers to audit. We only talk to those like approved servers. So that's kind of a nice thing. It is wild that Microsoft talked about this thing. Daniel, I'm sure you were there at their campus when the announcement was happening too. When I asked them questions about this, they gave me like security platitudes of like, yeah, we're taking this seriously. I did ask, like, is it enabled by default? And they said yes. Somebody had told me you could change that at the login process, but apparently that wasn't the case. So I think people were also confused at Microsoft. It's a whole, it's a lot of like lack of preparation that got them into this mess. It's pure hubris to me.
I indirectly blame Apple for this actually, because what Microsoft is trying to do is be like Apple.
They want to be Apple.
So bad at it.
They want to have these events where they announce like jaw-dropping new features and technologies that catch everyone by surprise, even though we had kind of talked about this such months ago. But like, so they try to do that. So that's why they kept it all a secret. They did the same thing on the Surface team. They do this too. And it's just because they want to have those Apple moments. And, if you get it right, it works. But when you get it wrong, it's, this is a major walk back now. And Qualcomm isn't happy. This was supposed to be their honeymoon period where they're going into this with their brand new processors, which do look very good. And it's going to be combined with these brand new features, which I think Recall is actually really awesome. I'm really looking forward to it. But I get the concerns around it. And the concerns need to be addressed. And people need to talk about that. But I don't know. The courses will be taught, as I tweeted on this, about how poorly Microsoft handled this whole thing.
Well, I'm astounded. Like within like minutes, by the way, of Microsoft almost announcing it, or that day, researchers were using the early versions of it and were like, I can see this database in another account. I didn't have to authenticate to see this. I don't understand how that was even possible. Somebody like that's firing. You send that person to the moon. Whoever allowed that to happen.
Some of this, honestly, is that Microsoft doesn't have the level of trust these days that Apple does. So no matter what had happened from either company, Microsoft would have come under tougher scrutiny than Apple, just because people look what happened to Brad Smith when he went to the Homeland Security Committee this week.
Right.
I mean, not that Congress is the arbiter of OPSEC or anything like that, but Ron Wyden, who's pretty smart, Eric Schmidt from Minnesota, were scathing. And Brad Smith ultimately said, "Yeah, we could have done better."
To be fair to Microsoft, I mean, part of their problem is they're so massive and successful. So, like, like Apple doesn't really have this issue. Like,
right.
Apple does well in laptops and does in PC, but it's still around between 10 and 15% of the market, depending on who you're looking at. Whereas Microsoft is just they're just global. They're an enterprise. They're in education. They're in hospitals. And they do, with their cloud stuff, they do business with China. And it's like, you can question that, as we should. But at the same time, at the end of the day, they're a capitalist company who needs to make money. And there's a lot of money to be made in China. And so it's like, it was said years ago that let's do business with China. They're our best trading partners. Now, in the last few years, things are getting like, all right, we got to look at this China thing. They're getting a little crazy over there. And so now they're kind of backtracking. And now it's like, what are you guys doing so much business with China for? And it's like, well, I mean, it's what we do. We're in business. And this is an interesting question. Like, do American corporations have obligations to the United States government and the citizenry for, national security stuff? Like, that's a weird area to get into, but it's definitely one that's worth discussing.
I think they do have an obligation to every user, however, to make sure that security is job one. And Microsoft has said that they're going to do that many times. I mean, Windows XP was supposed to be the most secure version of Windows they'd ever made. And even what's sad is this testimony is during the recall. And Smith actually cited Microsoft's reversal on recall as an example of their revitalized efforts in security. Well, so you just figured that out, huh? It doesn't look good, and it's why people are, I think, less trustworthy of Microsoft. I agree with your defense, Daniel. I'm not saying, of course, but at the same time,
these were real issues.
These were real issues. The Microsoft Exchange issues. I mean, there's just been this continuous effect. There's a story here. I'm trying to find it about Microsoft refusing to fix the hack. This is from ProPublica in SolarWinds. And now, we'll have to vet this guy, but Andrew Harris worked at Microsoft in 2016. He discovered a penetration that involved the company's cloud, Azure, and that the attackers managed to do it without leaving any trace. According to ProPublica, he figured it out. He focused on a Microsoft application that ensured users had permission to log in. The product used by millions to log on to their work contained a flaw. This is remember, this is 5 years ago. More than 5 years ago, 8 years ago. Contained a flaw that could allow attackers to masquerade as legitimate employees. He had come from the Defense Department. He knew about security. He went to Microsoft and said, we got a problem here. He flagged the issue to his colleagues. According to ProPublica, they saw it differently. Now, this is Harris telling ProPublica. The federal government was preparing to make a massive investment in cloud computing. Microsoft wanted the business. Acknowledging the security flaw could jeopardize the company's chances. He recalled one product leader telling him, multi-billion-dollar deal. Harris says he pleaded with the, and again, this is one person's word, somewhat credible, but still, he said he pleaded with the company for several weeks to address the flaw. A ProPublica investigation has found, but at every turn, Microsoft dismissed his warning. And then, of course, he left.
That's damning. Like, there's no like sugarcoating like how bad that seems for Microsoft. It reminds me, I don't know if you guys have been following the British Post Office scandal thing, but it kind of reminds me of that story too, where a massive institution, somebody was like, hey, your stuff is messed up and it's actually making my life more difficult. And the institution just failed to listen because they were so big and it would be inconvenient to actually listen to the problems. And Microsoft deserves all the blame.
Harris works for CrowdStrike now. I'll give you Microsoft's response, because again, this is just one guy, and this is a story in ProPublica, which is fairly credible, but because it leans into what we already think about Microsoft, it becomes a little more credible, right? This is a perception problem. Microsoft's response to ProPublica, quote, "Protecting customers is always our highest priority. Our security response team takes all security issues seriously, gives every case due diligence with a thorough manual assessment, as well as cross-confirming with engineering and security partners. Our assessment of this issue received multiple reviews and was," and these are weasel words if I ever heard them, "aligned with the industry consensus." Yep. In other words, we ignored it because everybody said, yeah, no big.
No, nobody cared enough. Yeah. We should have cared much more. But we didn't.
What product is this? Is this the, what is it called? Envoy? What is it? It's part of Microsoft's.
That's a good question.
Entra. Is this Entra he's talking about, I wonder? They don't say in the ProPublica story, and I thought maybe, Daniel, you might know.
No, unfortunately.
I suspect it's Entra, because I think the SolarWinds thing was an Entra flaw. Anyway, I'm sure we'll hear more about this.
It's just Microsoft's continuing culture problems.
It's a culture
which they've improved over the years. You know, they are trying, but there is still a lot of legacy people there, although surprisingly a lot have left over the recent years as well. But, you know, this is a company that's just massive. You know, I kind of agree here with Zuckerberg's approach of trying to eliminate a lot of middle management. I think, you know, that's a really good strategy. And maybe, I don't know, Microsoft needs to do that. But what you have are a lot of small independent departments who all are trying to accomplish their own tasks, meet their own goals. And sometimes it doesn't align with other companies or other areas within that company. And you get that competition. And you know, I think it's just prioritization. They need to make money, and you know, corners get cut. I think, you know, what Dept was talking about with Copilot, you know, Microsoft pivoted really fast on that. It's true. They, you know, laid off a lot of people, and then they just pivoted completely towards it, and they raced to get it out the door, and it worked for them mostly. But security definitely probably took a back seat to this stuff, you know, and it's going to catch up with them. I think everybody who messes with AI will have a security issue, but Microsoft needs to be a little bit more careful. And although, you know, their trust with public is probably is not as good as Apple, that's for certain. I think it's definitely better than Google. You know,
that's not saying much.
No, but like it is funny when as far as companies being dragged in front of like Congress and stuff like that, Microsoft has been managed to really avoid most of the controversies these days.
Yeah.
But now,
by the way,
this is starting to catch up.
I've found the name of the service. Hold on a second. The service was Active Directory Federation Services, ADFS, and it was a SAML. It was a SAML issue, and that's what he pinpointed, not Entra. It was a SAML attack, and ProPublica agrees basically with what you just said, Daniel. It was a clash, a culture clash, a clash with the won't fix culture. Some people took it seriously, but the people who mattered did not. They're trained. Here's a quote from the story by Dustin Childs, who worked in the Microsoft RC in the years leading up to the saga. They're trained because they're so resource constrained to think of these cases in terms of how can I get to won't fix. That's a culture problem. Right? That's all it is. And maybe Microsoft, which has said, oh, we're going to fix this. We recognize the problem. Maybe Microsoft can fix this. But you see, this is where you get lack of trust, because people read these stories and go, yikes. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Did you want to say something, Father?
Yeah, I was just saying that Microsoft 100% deserves blame. And yes, it is a major culture problem, but they have had a program for 21 years now called GSP, which has allowed government agencies to actually look at their source code.
That's pretty good.
So while that should not alleviate or ameliorate anything that Microsoft deserves for that cultural problem of terrible security, I do kind of want to ask the question of, if Congress is really, really, really wanting to do something about Microsoft security, why are they not taking advantage of the GSP program and their own experts to actually comb through the source code for the services that they use. NATO does it, China does it, Russia does it, Poland does it. So why isn't there enough manpower in the United States to actually have our experts combing over the code that they use?
Talk about a culture problem. That is our culture, right? We trust, in the United States, we trust businesses more than we trust government. Our space program is run by SpaceX and Boeing. Our internet in the Ukraine is provided by Starlink. This is a classic case of government going back to the Reagan era, saying, government's a bad idea. Let's let private industry handle this. And obviously, this is a case where both government and private industry failed. Brad Smith said Microsoft accepts responsibility for each and every one of these issues cited in the Cyber Safety Review Board's report. And I believe him when he says he's Microsoft's president. We want to turn this around. But getting back to the original topic of AI, this is a problem. This just engenders more trust issues. Yeah. Do you think business, Daniel? Do you think business trusts Microsoft?
Yeah, it's kind of like interesting. At least watching from this AI PC stuff. I talk a lot with the companies as well as some of the ISVs. They're so going hard in on this. I think because they just see the productivity, increases that's going to be gained from this technology, almost as an all costs. It's like totally fine, but they're embracing both these new ARM PCs as well as this AI stuff really, really hardcore. I mean, I know, coming up in July, some OEMs are going to be doing a lot more on AI with ISVs, and Lenovo's got still big plans coming. Like they really are kind of going all in this. They are going all in with Copilot. I think they're upset with the way things have been handled so far publicly with Microsoft, but I don't think their resolve is shaken, mostly because of like your company like Lenovo or HP. You've been dealing with Microsoft shenanigans for a very long time. These are the same companies that all signed on to Windows 8, released a bunch of new hardware for Windows 8, and then watch it completely get destroyed, right? So I think they're kind of, used to this stuff, and they see long-term that what they're doing is on the right track, and it gives them an opportunity for this new technology too. Because what you're going to see are a lot of these OEMs innovate around AI in their own ways to add value to their own brands, and they're going to do that through Microsoft.
Yeah. So the PC market kind of needed. Didn't the PC market kind of need something like this? You think, Daniel? Like, it's sort of like starting a college club, right? Like Intel was like, "Hey, AI PCs, want to join the AI PC club?" And there's it was pretty quiet. It was like a pretty not too many people kind of joining. Then Microsoft, "Hey guys, Copilot Plus PCs. It's better than AI PCs." Everyone's like, "Oh yeah, we're going to build hardware around this stuff." Yeah,
I think all of these companies have said to themselves, "Look, consumers are very interested in AI. This could be the next big thing. It's unknown still whether it is the next big thing, but we better be there in case it is." And I think every company, Apple, Microsoft, Google, Amazon, all the big tech companies are jumping on this bandwagon. And all I have to do is look at NVIDIA's stock rise and say, the market believes in it too. There's money to be made here. I will end this conversation with just a reference to Cory Doctorow's piece in his pluralistic blog. Microsoft pinky swears that this time they'll make security a priority. If you enjoy Cory's acid wit, you will very much enjoy this story. You might not if you live in Redmond, however. All right, we're going to take a little break. We have much more to talk about. Got a great panel to do it. Our Father's Day panel with Father Robert Palisser, the digital Jesuit. His new app, Jesuit Pilgrimage, is at jesuitpilgrimage.app. Who's that for?
.app. So if you are doing any of the Ignatian pilgrimages through Spain, France, or Rome, or if you're visiting Rome and you actually just want to see some of the interesting Jesuit sites, that's basically why we created that app. It started as just something that we talked about over glasses of grappa, and then at some point,
that explains
said, hey,
a lot.
You can code this, right?
Yeah, a grappa-inspired journey.
And we've been adding more and more languages. I think now we have English, Spanish, Italian, French, Vietnamese, German, Polish, working on Mandarin, Korean. Our users have wanted more, so we just keep adding.
That's really, that's very cool. Next time I'm in Rome, I will definitely pull it up. JesuitPilgrimage.app. Also with us, Daniel Rubino, Editor-in-Chief, Windows Central. It's a busy time for Windows Central. Lots to talk about, I'm sure. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's exciting times.
And your reviews of some of these Copilot Plus PCs will be Tuesday?
Some of them will be, yes. Yeah.
Some of them. Tuesdays
Some will be a little bit later.
Tuesdays, the 18th is ostensibly the day that these arrive. You know what I actually want? I want the dev kit, the Snapdragon X dev kit. I've got on the list. Have you seen? You probably can't say anything, so I'm not going to ask you any more questions. But
I don't have one. I can say I don't have one.
I really want one of those.
Yeah, we'll probably get our hands on it eventually. But yeah, it's a really cool looking mini PC running their
good price
NPU and hardware.
Yep. Yeah. Great way to kind of try all this stuff out. Also with us, it's always wonderful to have Devinder Hardawar, who has his feet in both camps, as it were, and his Kirby on his shirt.
And my Kirby and all my Nintendo stuff, yeah.
Can I ask you a really dumb question?
Sure.
Who's Kirby?
Even I know Kirby.
Leo.
Come on, Leo.
Kirby's awesome.
Leo is the character you play in Smash Brothers if you like being cheap. That's who Kirby is.
And in Nintendo, so he was an NES character, but in Nintendo lore, I think he's literally a god because he was the one who saved everybody when the great evil came in the last Smash Brothers. So Kirby's great. Love him.
So he's basically
he's my spirit animal.
He's basically a pink blob that is in many Nintendo games. Is that correct?
Has his own game. He absorbs powers. If he eats something, he absorbs the power of that thing. It's a great character. Love it.
I have a Switch.
My daughter's obsessed with him.
Yeah. But it's not just for kids. I mean, I think you are all adults as far as I could tell, and you seem to all be in the Kirby camp. So
it's the only IP I like by Nintendo. So I do have a Switch, but yeah, Kirby's awesome, man. Like those are the most fun platforms I have, just because I don't know, it's hilarious how he inhales people and then spits them back out, and it's just
it's kind of nightmare fuel if you really think about it. But yeah, it's fun to play on.
But it's cute.
You should play the new one on Switch.
The Return to Dreamland.
The latest one, I think it's Kingdom.
Oh, not Return to Dreamland, Kingdom. Okay.
Not Return to Dreamland. The latest one that came out on Switch.
The Forgotten
really
Land.
Fun. I think you enjoyed
Kirby and the Forgotten Land.
There you go.
All right. I'm going to download it on my Switch, and I will be with the Kirbys. I feel so left out. I guess I'm old. That's all there is to it. I never, Nintendo was after my generation. I had a Sega Genesis. I had Atari, but I missed the NES and the Mario and that whole thing. I think I'm just a little too old for that. Anyway, it's good to have young people on the show to remind me of what it's like. Our show today brought to you by ZipRecruiter. We've all heard the famous Abraham Lincoln quote, "Good things come to those who wait." Actually, I've been told that's only part of the quote. The full quote is, "Good things come to those who wait, but only the things left by those who hustle." If you're a business owner and want the best people on your team, that applies. Thankfully, ZipRecruiter puts the hustle in your hiring so you find qualified candidates fast. We use ZipRecruiter, and this is really hard these days because if you are talented and you've got skills, there are a dozen companies trying to hire you. It's hard to get ahead, but that's why we use ZipRecruiter. And you can try it too for free at ZipRecruiter.com/twit. One of the many ways ZipRecruiter helps you get ahead, their smart technology finds top talent for your roles right away. So as soon as you post that job, ZipRecruiter's smart technology starts showing you people who fit the bill. You decide whether to invite them. That's another way you get ahead, because when you invite somebody to apply to your job, it's very flattering. You move right to the top of the pile, right? They want me. It's a very, very good technique. Let ZipRecruiter give you the hiring hustle you need. See why 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. Just go to ziprecruiter.com/twit. Try it for free. Again, that's ziprecruiter.com/TWIT. It's what we use, ZipRecruiter. It is the smartest way to hire. It was Abe Lincoln, didn't he, who said, never trust anything you hear on the internet? I think he said that. I may be wrong. Let's see. So this was interesting too, Daniel. Maybe you can clarify this. I don't think it was ever formally announced, but I was always under the impression, I know that Paul Thurrott and Richard Campbell were under the impression that Qualcomm had an exclusive on Windows of some kind, right? Reuters seems to have confirmed that. They now have a story that says Qualcomm's exclusivity is expiring, and that means a lot of other companies are going to start doing ARM personal computers for Windows.
Yes.
This is late next year after Qualcomm's exclusive deal to supply chips for laptops expires. Is that accurate?
Right. Yeah, Qualcomm. That's what we're hearing. That rumor has been going around for a couple of years now, and it did line up with 2025. That was what we heard back then, and now Reuters seems to be confirming that. It's interesting. I don't know where we go from here. So to set the field, you have MediaTek, and MediaTek works very closely with ARM, the company that designs the chips. Now, ARM currently doesn't have any chip designs that could compete with Apple, which is why, as we discussed earlier, Qualcomm bought Nuvia to get away from ARM as an alternative.
And remember,
but MediaTek
Apple
doesn't have that.
Sued those former Apple employees who went to Nuvia. Yeah. I think they eventually dropped the lawsuit, but they claimed they had taken Apple proprietary information with them, that their skill set, but
they're poaching. Yeah.
They're poaching. But basically, a lot of the people who went to Nuvia came from Apple. But basically, it gave Qualcomm parity, or at least that's the expectation.
In fact, I forgot the gentleman's name, but the lead designer used to work for ARM Limited too. So he has a real huge pedigree in terms of ARM. So he worked at ARM, designed those chips, and he went to go work for Apple and design their chips. So he really, that's why Qualcomm's doing so well.
Gerard Williams, who Apple did sue. Right. Eventually, last year they abandoned that lawsuit. I'm not sure why, but they had sued him for breach of contract.
Yeah, they weren't happy about that at all. But so MediaTek is going to rely on ARM here, and I don't know. The good news is that they could come in where Qualcomm isn't right now, which is the really more low-end market for these PCs. That said, Qualcomm could easily just scale down these chips, right? So they're already at 10-core. There's no reason why they can't go down to an 8-core chip or even a 6-core to then lower its price. But what MediaTek's going to have to do, they're going to have to rely on ARM's chips, which is what Qualcomm has been doing up until now. So I don't know. That doesn't seem like a real winning formula to me, because we're going to get back to the chips are okay, but they're not amazing, right?
Aren't NVIDIA and AMD also doing this? MediaTek is not known for high-powered chips. It'd be more phone chips, right. I imagine. But that's what they apparently want to do. NVIDIA is definitely way more interesting. They actually have a long history with ARM. They made the first Cortex processors used in Windows RT devices back in the day. Oh,
and now,
boy.
Of course, they're Tegra. Remember all that?
Sad.
You know what? I still have and I love it, an NVIDIA Shield with is it the X1 with one of their, and it's great. It's amazing. It's a great processor, even though it's like 5 years old now. It's pretty old.
Yeah, but NVIDIA is a very different company today, right? And so you take their GPU abilities. I think they're getting a little envious of the handheld gaming market, that they don't have quite any play in that right now.
Well, the AMD, Switch is powered by Tegra, so that's something.
Right. Yeah. So they do have at least that. But now, they look at the PC stuff and they're like, oh, we can play there too. So I think they're way more interesting. I think they could attack the PC market from the high end, which is something when you talk to Qualcomm right now, they admit they're not really going after. They're saying we're sticking with thin and lights and convertibles, that kind of stuff, but they're not going after gaming PCs, 15-inch workstations, 17-inch laptops. I think they know NVIDIA is going to probably come in from that end, and I think they could be successful, because I think as good as NVIDIA will be, they won't be as efficient as whatever Nuvia and these Orion chips are going to be like. So you have that. And then AMD, AMD needs to do something. I don't know if they're doing well in the desktop market. They're doing well in the server market, and they have a lot of play there. When it comes to laptops, though, I don't know where they're going. Everybody heard the same rumor here at Taipei, which was their new high-end laptop chip costs more than Intel's strict point, which was weird. I don't know why. We were hearing that, though, and it's a weird thing to hear an AMD chip is more expensive than Intel. I don't know how the PC market has two vendors running x86 when you have Intel, who has so much more market dominance, and they offer so much more to OEMs than AMD does. I don't see how in the laptop market AMD competes unless they do something dramatic and team up with AMD, with NVIDIA, and do something with ARM. Because I think Intel's new chips with the Lunar Lake won't be as powerful or won't be as competitive with Qualcomm's, but it's going to narrow the gap enough that they're going to be really good chips too. So I don't know where this leaves AMD, though.
I guess there's multiple levels to this conversation too, because AMD's new chips, which will support Copilot Plus PCs, are coming soon. They're coming in July, and the Lunar Lake stuff, Intel's like, I don't know, sometime in the fall, maybe. We hope so. So Intel has been like delayed quite a bit compared to what AMD's been doing. Like AMD's put MPUs and laptop chips, in their systems for a while too, and we're calling out AI PCs. Also, a whole part of this is, has Microsoft actually made the Windows on ARM experience any good? And when I was in Redmond, like, I spent a lot of time basically just drilling Microsoft. Like, guys, I cannot trust you. I cannot trust that you actually made this emulator better, made app compatibility better, the things that really killed the Surface Pro 9 5G, and really every ARM-based Windows PC I've ever tested. It's been a disaster. So they're kind of promising us a miracle, and especially after recall, I don't know what I can believe at this point.
I'm not alone, though. I think consumers, and it's not AI, but I think they want the benefits of Apple Silicon in terms of battery life, heat, fans, thin, light. I think Windows on ARM, if they can get it right and can compete with Apple, I mean, that's really what they're saying is we have MacBook Airs, but they run Windows. Isn't it?
And it took 4 years to get there, 4 years after the M1 MacBook Air,
right?
So
right.
Yeah. But yeah, I believe it just given the timeline. But man, Microsoft really screwed us on like Windows on ARM experiences. Like they kept pushing it on us to the point where I was asking them, like, I know this computer isn't as fast as the other Surface Pro 9.
Oh, they were
pigs.
Kind of just, they were awful.
They were just awful about it.
Plus,
they kind
the
of
software wasn't ready.
Yeah.
I mean, even some of the Microsoft's built-in apps weren't native. But it
was a disaster.
Everybody says that's all changed, isn't it? Hasn't it, Daniel? I mean, when I run Windows on ARM on my Mac, it runs quite nicely under Parallels. I like it.
Yeah. No, it runs really well now. Part of their problem has always been the fact that they said they would support ARM, not replace with ARM. So like Apple's like, we're replacing with ARM. We're going to get rid of all our Intel stuff. We're switching over. Developers, you need to all get on board because that's the next thing, right? Microsoft said, no, we're going to support ARM. And so they knew it was going to be this long journey there. And Qualcomm, as I mentioned earlier, was beholden to ARM Limited on their chip designs to come up with something that could compete with Apple. And so far they haven't, right? Luckily, Qualcomm did this Nuvia thing. And I think that's why I will say this shift right now with ARM. I've never seen this many OEMs on board, this enthusiastic. I'm seeing enterprise, mostly small to medium businesses really on board with it. It really feels different. I mean, Slack just this week announced that their app is now ARM compatible. It's like you have, Slack, you have Chrome. Like these were apps that they could have done this years ago, and now they're all doing it right before the 18th, which I think is super telling. So I think it's going to be a big difference. I think the only thing that's going to really hold back these devices, and I don't think it's a real argument, is gaming. Qualcomm is kind of where Intel is right now with its Arc GPUs, where it has a platform, it's developing it. They're releasing drivers constantly and improving things, but it's going to take them a while to get there. Qualcomm already promised that they're going to do monthly updates for the GPU, and they got to constantly build it up. But it's going to take them time. So if you want to buy this to game, that's probably not ideal. But then again, I could say the same thing about Macs, right? So, and there are other ways around this. But I think the GPU performance is going to be one of those things where it's going to take months before that gets to really where they want it.
Where does this leave Intel? Are they history?
No, I think Lunar Lake is actually looking really promising. And listen, Intel's been hitting their marks. They said, was it 5 years, 4 nodes? They're building fabs. Like they're, every year they're hitting a cadence with a new chip and they're switching architectures. Lunar Lake is a significant shift from Meteor Lake, and Meteor Lake was already a significant shift from the previous generation. Like I've seen way more innovation from Intel than I am from AMD in this market.
Interesting.
And Lunar Lake should definitely be more efficient. Now, I don't think it's going to be ARM efficient, but there was an interesting paper I retweeted. It was from an analyst talking about this discussion between x86 and ARM64. The belief is ARM is inherently more efficient because it's a RISC design. But there's a lot of disagreement about that, saying, no, that's not actually the case. There's actually no fundamental difference between the two. It's just historically the way they've been developed has led them down kind of different paths. But Intel, I think, they're doing some really good stuff. I think Lunar Lake is going to surprise people. Dept was making the point about the release. Yeah. So it wasn't scheduled it was supposed to come out in limited release by the end of the year. That was always their goal. They've been very public about that. And then you can only see mass production in 2025. That's been shifted now. Now they're trying to get some out the door by September with more production by the end of the year. And that's because they're feeling the pressure from Qualcomm. There was a lot of counter programming by Intel in Taipei at Computex to sort of be like, oh, we're doing all this stuff too. And our NPU is going to be as powerful, if not more powerful than what Qualcomm has. Like I said, I don't think it's going to be the same. I think Qualcomm's going to have the edge here for efficiency, and maybe even at least some performance. But Intel's chips are going to be, I've always mentioned this in laptops. If you can get 18 hours of real world battery life and another laptop gets 16 hours of real world battery life, is that a substantial difference anymore?
Get all
right
day.
Now between
just all day. That's all I need. Yeah.
If we're talking 5 hours and 12 hours, that makes a difference. Yeah. So there's a point of diminishing returns on this stuff. And I think you're right? All Microsoft needs to do with Qualcomm is get to the point of we're as good, if not better, than Apple's M3 where it's at today. And I think for Gen 1, that's really impressive and good enough.
It's got to frost Apple just a little bit, though, that all these companies are succeeding because they're basically following in Apple's footsteps. Father Robert, explain to me CISC, RISC, efficiency cores, performance cores. I know you pay attention to this. The world of processors has changed dramatically over the last few years.
Oh, yeah. I mean, come on. The CISC versus RISC debate goes back to when I was a kid. When the very early days of fighting it out in the chip market of either you do reduced instruction sets much faster or you do complex instruction sets more slowly, but you can do more at the same time. Now, when you look at modern architecture, and the panel's dead on this one, the difference between what we used to consider RISC and what we used to consider CISC is almost non-existent anymore.
Yeah.
It's completely blurred. There's no chip on the market that you can say, oh, that's definitely a RISC infrastructure, or that's definitely a CISC infrastructure. Especially when you start integrating things like NPUs and you start adding GPUs, which are very, very interesting. I want to call them RISC architecture type chips that are doing a very specific instruction set. So to try to say that it comes down to architecture, I think it's a non-starter. What it does come down to is efficiency. How well do you move instructions into your buffer? How well do you pull them out and push them into the bus? How power efficient are you per cycle, per instruction that you process? And that's where Apple hit the sweet spot. There's a lot of people who look at Apple's architecture, their M1 through 3, and they say, oh, they created something that didn't exist before. That's not the case. Remember, they took the ARM architecture. They took those ARM engineers and they created something. So for them to cry foul and say, no one else can do that, that's just a good
I don't think that's happening. I don't think that's happening.
No, I'm saying it. I was saying maybe in their hearts are going, your guys are just copying us. But no, it's a good point. It's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a great thing. I just want to say, like, we're talking about this back and forth, but we want these companies to like be pointing guns at each other and be like, okay, we got to make our stuff better because we want them to be sweating bullets so we get the hardware.
I want them to get better, though, not by copying each other. I want them to innovate in their own way so that we have real competition. If everybody says...
You've just opened a whole can of worms, Leo. I don't know. Intel just added onboard memory to Lunar Lake, right? Just like Apple has done. So it's like, but what is innovation? What is copying? Like, where do the lines blur? At least right now, it doesn't seem like people are directly copying, except for the whole onboard memory thing. But I want that competition.
If you find a truly better way, it would make sense that others would copy it because that's the best way to do it.
That's evolution.
Yeah. And so then at that point, you could differentiate on top of the basic innovation. It is really interesting that you're seeing NPUs everywhere now, that you're seeing performance cores and efficiency cores everywhere now. You're seeing on-chip. Apple calls it unified memory. I don't know what Intel calls it. Is it the same thing?
It's basically on chip, on the package. Yeah.
Though I have to say, a monoculture isn't always a good thing. Intel at one point, I think it was the Israeli Intel pirate venture, discovered that speculative execution could make a huge performance improvement, but now Intel is deeply regretting that, and everybody else did the same thing, by the way. ARM also did speculative execution, and as a result, they're all being bit by these Spectre meltdown style bugs.
It happens like Meteor Lake. It had a design element that made it run a little too hot. I believe Intel is like backing away from that. Hyper-threading, they're not doing hyper-threading anymore, but
Yeah, they stopped hyper-threading. They said hyper-threading is inefficient. That was like the big thing.
That was a big thing like 20 years ago. I remember when hyper-threading came out. And I would remember going to my task manager being so happy I saw more cores.
Whoa,
so
double the cores. Yeah. So we're going to see...
There's this weird feeling I get sometimes that we're bolting on innovation to dying architecture.
Well, x86, that's for sure true, right?
Right. But I mean, it's sort of like, okay, if we were to wipe everything out, what would we create, both hardware and software? What kind of architecture do we think would be most efficient for the type of computing that we do today? And Apple has a much cleaner start, but then they also have the ability to change everything at once.
That's Apple, right? They're willing to cut off legacy, and that's what Microsoft has never been willing to do. And
they couldn't do it. I mean, if they tried to do that, they'd be crucified.
Right.
And rightfully so.
No, it's their business. Is absolutely in their business, they're right to say, if there's a guy selling chapatis in New Delhi that's running an x86 PC on Windows 7, we're going to make damn sure that his machine continues to work.
That's their superpower.
That's their superpower. It's also their Achilles heel. And Apple, because they're a tiny fraction of the market, is willing to just every few years just say, sorry, guys, your machine's no longer going to run. It's a fascinating world we live in. So June 18th, supposedly, you went to Computex, Daniel?
Yeah.
So you saw all those new PCs.
Yes.
June 18th, Samsung, Acer, Asus, Lenovo, HP, all are going to ship Dell, these new Copilot Plus PCs this week. Yes?
Give or take. I think some of the Dells might be a couple of days behind, but yeah, I mean, that's the goal. Everything should be coming out.
And look what they're saying. 18 hours, 26 hours, 22 hours battery life. I mean, amazing battery life, 27 hours. We don't know yet.
The numbers I saw from one OEM, and I don't have reason to doubt them, right? Of course, we got to test it and back up, but like they were very explicit in their testing how they did it because they want us to repeat it. That's the reason why they're doing that.
Right.
They showed compared to Apple's M3 and the MacBook Pro 14-inch, and there was no doubt going by their numbers, the efficiency gains that Qualcomm has over Apple. It is, in other words, a much more efficient chip because this laptop definitely got more battery life in hours, even though its battery was significantly smaller than what you find in the MacBook. So I think it's going to be really good. I think there's a little bit of confusion that will happen, and I'll predict this right now, which is you're going to see benchmarks a little bit all over the place because technically there are 4 chips, There's the X Elite, and everybody knows the X Plus. But within the X Elite, there's actually 3 SKUs, and the X Plus is just one. But here, there's at least another one coming.
Are they binned? Are they all just binned versions of the same chip?
Probably, yeah. So it's the X Elites are going to be 12 core, but they can vary. The lowest SKU of it doesn't have turbo, and it doesn't peak as high in terms of speed. Also, its GPU is less powerful. So it's 12 core, 3.4 gigahertz, no dual core boost, and a 3.8 teraflops for the GPU. But the highest goes to 3.8 gigahertz with a boost to 4.2 gigahertz and has a 4.6 teraflop GPU. So you're going to see, and then OEMs within that chip can then choose different TDP levels for the power draw. I've seen some as low as 18 watts on what I would consider most mainstream laptops. You'll see will be around the 18 to 20 watt range, but some can go as high as 45 watts. So the Asus VivaBook is supposed to be 45 watt, even though they're using a lower tier chip. So you're going to see benchmarks a little bit all over the place, and it's important to interpret that because it's going to be, I think they'll all be as fast as the MacBook Air M3. Right. You know, at least that speed.
Which is an older system now, based on an older chip too. So it's like, yes, if you're releasing something soon, Qualcomm, it better be faster than what Apple showed off.
This is a 4 nanometer process. They're made by.
Yes.
We think they're made by Samsung. We don't know who fabs. Probably.
I don't know. Well, they've actually, Cristano said that they're one of the few. Very openly about that they dual source their chips from TSMC and Samsung.
But there's not a lot of capacity from TSMC because Apple buys up all the TSMC chips.
Sure.
Those are the 3 nanometer node. Apple, I think, looking in the rearview mirror saying, oh, crap, and has jumped to M4, a new 3 nanometer node that is better, apparently. So a lot of this is, basically measuring yourself against Apple's previous generation or soon to be previous generation. The only M4 right now is an iPad, so it's not comparable. But it's
I would say Apple knows kind of run.
If they can match the M3, that's impressive.
Fine.
I'll still take that.
I spent a lot of money on an M3 Max laptop, which I'm feeling like maybe I shouldn't have done that. I thought that was going to be future.
A lot of people have M1s are totally fine with M1. I think the problem with Apple, and I say the problem with Apple, it's not really a problem, but like, I think people were expecting each generation of the M series to be a substantial jump in performance, and it's not.
It's not.
Even the node jump between the M2 and the M3 only resulted in around, I think it was a 10 to 15% performance gain in CPU power, which is fine, but that's like Intel stuff, right? That's like,
it's not doubling or tripling,
minor.
which they had done when they went from Intel to Apple Silicon.
And the chips are, so they can either clock the chips higher, again, like what Intel does, and then you're going to reduce, get more heat, and then you're going to reduce battery life, or you got to shrink the node again. But then the node, that's not easy, and you're dependent upon TSMC to be able to manufacture that. I will say what Apple's been doing really well in is the fact that they've been focusing on their GPU and making their GPU much more powerful. And so that's the route that they're going down now. I think actually Qualcomm is going to follow the same pattern, actually. I think we'll see a significant jump with Gen 2 for the Snapdragon X Elite. But then I think you're going to really start to see them focus on their GPU performance and try to get that. Because right now they even admit their GPU, it's there. They're happy to do things with it. But their real focus was efficiency and performance and trying to match what's out there. But I don't think we're going to see like the M4. I know people are like, oh, great, Qualcomm's out, but now the M4 is coming out. But like, I don't think the M4 is going to be this like game-changing performance jump. I think if anything, their GPU might be better, and that'll be the interesting story. And their NPU is finally going to get up to 38 tops, I believe is the rumor, which still behind Qualcomm, but it's a big jump from where I think they're at 18 tops right now. So they'll have a lot more power there. But that gets back into the Apple Intelligence and what devices it can run on, right? Because now you're getting to that issue where, turns out a lot of the older hardware can't run this stuff.
No, they're requiring the new iPhone, the iPhone 15 or later. Although I did see
Pro too, I think.
Pro, that's right. I did see the difference between Pro and non-Pro is RAM. And I did see people say that's the 16 gigs RAM versus 8 gigs RAM. You need a lot more RAM as well.
Also, the plain iPhone 15 runs the older chip, not the new one. So that's the whole thing. Yeah.
We pay attention to all these details. We're geeks. I don't think real people. What are they looking for? Do they even care what Top's device does or any of that?
No.
That's why Apple was
like
smart.
Things that your computer. Yeah.
Apple was smart to focus on functions as opposed to any of the rest of it.
Precisely.
And they blew me. I have to say, they blew me away, and I cannot wait to get my hands on the new calculator.
I was wondering when someone was going to bring that up.
They were very cagey.
Hasn't OneNote done that forever?
Have
OneNote
they?
doing that for years?
Not that.
Yes.
Not that.
What, the ability just to write out equations and convert them?
But it's like a spreadsheet. You write out an equation, it produces the answer in your handwriting, and if you change a number in the equation, it updates the result like a spreadsheet. That's pretty impressive.
I don't know about the updating part. But
I don't think OneNote does that. They have handwriting, but okay.
Yeah, but it solves problems. It solves problems for you.
Right. Yeah. And again,
and it'll even explain the steps. It'll even explain the steps of how it got there.
This is all marketing until we actually get our hands on the thing. But
I like the co-creator stuff. I think Apple's doing this too, but Microsoft has it where you can draw something and then tell the AI what you want it to be.
Yeah.
And then the AI will draw it for you and you can control. Like, I think it's gonna be a little rough out the gate, but for people who can't draw but want to create images for either presentations or their own artwork, I think that's super cool, actually.
Well, and even take it to the next step, because you can draw it. You could draw a web page, and not only will it create the image, it'll create the functionality and make it real. That's an OpenAI feature. That's pretty darn impressive, I have to say.
We've been using that a lot over here for icons, like religious icons, to make copyright-free versions of religious icons.
Yeah.
Right.
Where we can sketch out what we think it should look like, and then we'll ask Copilot to give us 10 different versions of this place.
What's nice is when the Muslims take over, they could just erase the faces in software. It'll be so much easier. I'm kidding. I'm joking.
Please don't start a holy war on them. What are you doing in this episode?
I remember going to the Hagia Sophia, and there are these. It's gone through several. It's a mosque now, but it was a cathedral for a while, and they because they're not allowed in the mosque to have faces, human faces. They took the icons and they scratched it's a different kind of icon though. Scratched the faces out so that we're faceless. I mean, this is history. It's just fascinating to me. But anyway, let's take a break. We're going to come back and talk about more while the religious war rages around our heads. Sorry, Father. Have you ever heard this before? Forgive me, Father. Yikes. Let's talk about Mint Mobile, if you don't mind, our fine sponsor. And by the way, I am a customer. And every time I look at my Mint Mobile bill, I wonder, why was I paying so much money? I've been doing spring cleaning. I call it Swedish death cleaning, getting rid of everything. My favorite takeaway is the post-clean clarity you get, where you go, wow, why was I living like that? That's what you find when you look at your Mint Mobile bill and go, wow, why was I paying that much? My Mint Mobile bill is less than a third of what I was paying, and it's the same great service for as little as $15 a month. 15. When people don't believe me, buy a 3-month plan, $45, $15 a month. You say, wow, how have I been living like this? It's time to switch to Mint Mobile. You get, of course, unlimited nationwide talk and text and data on the nation's largest 5G network. It's T-Mobile, I'll tell you that. So I was a T-Mobile customer paying more than 3 times as much for $15 a month. I loved it so much I bought a whole year. All plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text. As I said, delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. If you get great T-Mobile service where you are, you will love Mint Mobile. Use your own phone if you want, which means, you keep your contacts and all your software, or buy a phone from them. Either way, you can easily bring your phone number with you. I kept the phone number. Look, this is the best way to ditch overpriced wireless. With Mint Mobile's limited time deal, you get 3 months of premium wireless service for just $15 a month. So this is how it works. To get this new customer offer, new customers only, and your new 3-month unlimited wireless plan for just $15 a month, you go to mintmobile.com/twit. That's Mint Mobile, MINTMOBILE, mintmobile.com/twit. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/twit. $45 upfront payment required. That's $15 a month for 3 months. New customers on the first 3-month plan only. Speed slower when you get above 40 gigabytes on an unlimited plan. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for details. But I could tell you, when you find out what the details are, you'll see this is a great deal. This is just a must. mintmobile.com/twit. We thank them so much for their longtime support of everything we do here at This Week in Tech. Great panel here. Devinder Hardawar from Engadget, senior editor. Kirby fan. Now I know what that is. Great to have you. Also on Father's Day. Happy Father's Day. Daniel Rubino.
You.
The dog father, editor-in-chief of Windows Central. And the actual father, Padre, SJ, Father Robert Balacer, the digital Jesuit. JesuitPilgrimage.app is his latest thing. All right, so we've talked about Microsoft. We talked about Apple. Oh, there is some bad news for Apple. By the way, just came out in the Financial Times yesterday. Apparently, according to 3 people in the know, Brussels is about to call Apple to the mat. Apple, you may remember, under the Digital Marketing Act, changed the way its App Store worked. According to the Financial Times, the EU has determined Apple is not complying with obligations to allow app developers to steer users to offers outside its App Store without imposing fees upon them. This will be the first charges brought against a tech company under the DMA. Meta apparently is next. Apple, Meta, and then maybe Alphabet. They're still under investigation. You may remember that Apple's solution was to, okay, you can have your own app store. We're still going to charge you 27%. And they really, they were malicious compliancing it, dragging their heels. Regulators, though, have only made preliminary findings. Apple still has a chance to correct its practices. But we kind of saw this coming, didn't we? Apple was doing the minimum to see what they could get away with. Any thoughts?
I mean, we saw this back
go ahead.
Back during Epic Games, the Epic Games saga with Apple.
Yeah, they did the least they could do.
We knew.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's kind of hilarious.
We all looked at that and we realized, yeah, you're right. You are a gatekeeper. And as a gatekeeper, you have an obligation to make sure that all of your publishers aren't penalized for publishing on your platform. And that's essentially what the DMA is trying to do. It's trying to say, look, we will grant you a functional monopoly. However, you can't use the power of that functional monopoly to further expand the monopoly. Over here, the press that it's getting on this side of the pond is, yeah, this is a government that is rightfully taking a big tech company to mat for acting in bad faith.
Apple introduced this core technology fee, which is 50 cents per user on developers with apps that have more than 1 million users for every first installment by a user. Apple also charged an additional 3% fee to app developers that use its payment processors. They did cut the fee from 30% to 17% for digital goods and services paid. But the EU is apparently, the Commission has apparently decided that's insufficient.
I mean, certainly seeing how Apple has responded to, like, it seemed like every week they were kind of changing the rules for developers in terms of what was allowed outside the App Store. The whole thing about them finally like being like, okay, emulators can be on our App Store now because they were threatened by stuff outside the App Store. All of that is just like dragging Apple to some sort of like compromise. It makes sense. It makes sense that the EU is not happy about this.
Yeah. Meta, of course, is in trouble because of its so-called pay or consent model, where users pay a subscription fee for an ad-free Facebook and Instagram. Otherwise, Meta continues to collect every bit of information it can. Apparently, the EU is not real happy about that either. Also, the EU is expected to add a second investigation focusing on the Safari choice screen. Remember the Windows ballot, the browser ballot? Apple's doing that with Safari. The EU is less than pleased. So there are going to be
Microsoft is still doing that too.
They still do the browser ballot? Really? Oh, wow.
Well, if you, not the ballot, but if you go to like, hey, I'm searching for Google Chrome, you will get pop-ups in Edge saying, hey, you got a great browser right here. Why do you need to go to Chrome?
Edge.
So they're all doing it.
Yeah. Edge, they do that in the US. Good luck trying to download Chrome. You got to go through a barrage of Edge ads. Another problem, this isn't Microsoft's problem, but it kind of related to it. VSCode, which is Microsoft's free code editor that so many people use. It's also open source. You can use it as Visual Codium. But VSCode comes from Microsoft, and Microsoft runs an extensions market for it called the Visual Studio Code Marketplace. And apparently, researchers showed how easy it is to put malicious software on that marketplace. One of the very popular dark themes is called Dracula. You would think people would stay away from that, but no, they love it. So 3 researchers created an extension to typo squat the Dracula official theme. The fake extension was called Darkula, which I think is actually a good name. They registered a matching domain at darkulatheme.com. They became a verified publisher. There it is on the VS Code marketplace. It actually incorporates code from the legit Dracula theme, but also includes a script that collects system information, host name, number of installed extensions, devices to domain name in the operating system platform, and then sends it to a remote server via an HTTPS post request. None of this is malicious. It's just to demonstrate that malicious code can be run. The malicious code was not flagged by the endpoint detection and response tools. VS Code is treated with leniency due to its nature as a development and testing system. The Darkula became very popular. It was mistakenly installed by multiple high-value targets, including a publicly listed company with a $483 billion market cap, major security companies, and a national justice court network.
Oh. What is the IT within these organizations? What are they doing? There's a very easy joke here. Of course, this is happening. Microsoft doesn't know what it's like to run a successful app store. Like, the security's not there. They don't know what to do.
Wow. So, fortunately, it was just researchers, but they showed how easy this was and how many people downloaded it because it's Darkula. Who wouldn't want Darkula?
Wouldn't want it.
Who wouldn't? So Microsoft has yet to respond. Bleeping Computer, I got this article from Lawrence Abrams' great website, has contacted Microsoft to ask if they plan to revisit the studio marketplace's security and introduce additional measures, but has not received a response by publication time.
The security is like one guy in a closet.
What?
Vetting all of these.
No, I'm sorry. I'm working on SolarWinds. Yeah. I cannot be bothered. This was back in June 9th. I don't know if they responded since then. Okay.
Amazing.
Just, you know what? This is not just a problem with Visual Studio Code. PyPy, which is the library of useful libraries for Python, has thousands of malicious projects there. I mean, it's a mess. These supply chain attacks are very difficult to thwart, apparently.
But you'd think Microsoft would be a little better than like open source projects, like would take a little more care. I don't know.
But I mean, would they be? I mean, the whole idea of having a marketplace is so that you could develop applications at record time by using snippets that other people have created. Well, I mean, there's no way to make that safe.
Surely somebody,
zero ways to make it safe.
Just anybody using the service would be like, hey, that looks weird, and report this. Like, surely
it should. That should happen.
Yeah.
Right.
So where does that go?
But I mean,
yeah,
that means that you're going to be investing in people who are actually going to be reviewing these code snippets and looking for weird send-offs and weird post requests. That's not Microsoft's business, and they wouldn't be good at it either.
The solution here is going to be AI. I'm really looking forward to the idea of AI using it to sniff out. It's just sophisticated machine learning to go through people's code and look for things. At the very least, it could just flag things so a human then can go through it and verify. I think this area of security is going to be massive. I've already talked about, with email and phishing attacks. Phishing is like, we used to get mad at like downloading executables through Edge or, Internet Explorer back in the day, or browser helper objects, right? But now the real threat is phishing. You just got to click a link and enter in your information, and you just gave it all to the hacker, right? I think, using AI, I already know companies are working on that and they're going to leverage these new NPUs to be able to do that. So I think, that area of AI is going to be super interesting as capacity rolls out to be able to improve this kind of stuff. Because to be fair, humans not only cost a lot of money to employ, they're fallible, right? If you're just tired and you're reviewing code, like it's pretty easy to overlook something. So
absolutely.
I think this stuff will help out a lot.
This reminds me of something you actually brought up earlier in the episode, Padre, that certain projects Microsoft was doing are transparent and open, like for governments to look at. That is often a thing that is critiqued. Like when a company says, "Oh yeah, you go take a look at our code; it's all totally safe." It is almost like a false security move because few people actually have the resources to do that or the time. So yeah, you'd expect maybe the American government can go in and go look into this stuff, but it's kind of like one of those things that Microsoft can say, hey, we're being good, but also the actual, motivation to take them up on that offer isn't always real. So that's a whole other, it's all kind of related.
And Daniel's right. AI could finally provide them with the resources to go through that, to actually take them up on the offer of running the source code and saying, okay, well, where are the problems going to end up? I actually love that idea. I've already worked with a company that has created AI honeypots for trying to stop call scammers, and it works exceptionally well. I was not able to tell that I was in a virtual environment that did not actually exist. I thought that I was penetrating a network, and I was seeing all the things I should see if you're penetrating a network, and it turned out that it was entirely a fantasy. I mean. That's actually a very cool application.
Yeah.
Well, a boy can dream, can't he? I like this story. I don't like it, but I like it. Phishing attack hits L.A. County Public Health Agency, jeopardizing 200,000 plus residents' personal info. You put this in here, Father Robert. How did they do this?
Okay, so the first thing you have to realize is this actually happened back in February.
Oh.
And they did not say when it stopped.
Oh.
So this was probably a very long running exfiltration.
Did they just discover it? Is that?
They just announced it, but they didn't say when they discovered it / stopped it. And with that breach, that's over 200,000 people's records of personal identifying information. And that personal identifying information includes things like social security and name, financial information, health history, prescription history. It's bad. It's really, and any financial information that may have been tied to that person through the Department of Health. So that's one of the worst breaches I've seen in a while, not in terms of numbers, but in terms of the type of information that was exfiltrated.
As you say, it happened back in February. Employees received a phishing email. They clicked on a link in the body of the email thinking they were accessing a legitimate message. And then that's that. It's not clear, according to Yahoo News, when officials became aware of the incursion. This department spokesman did not immediately provide answers to questions. This is actually from the LA Times. So yeah, but it's so funny. I'm so inured to these. I see them every day and I don't report on them because it's happening all the time now.
And it wasn't just one employee. It was 53 different employees clicked on the link.
Oh, they all clicked on
amazing.
Everyone clicked on the link.
Now, that's really the failing of the LA County Health Department, because you're supposed to we do training with your employees so that they're aware not to click links in email. 53 did it? Oh, God.
But like Devendra said, I mean, human. It's someone in the organization is going to make that mistake.
Wow. But 53 must have been well-crafted. That was a well-crafted phishing attack.
My company sends out phishing attempts, and I fell for one the other day.
Did you?
So
that's an
and I'm pretty good at this stuff.
That's a walk of shame.
Yeah.
Yeah, they used to do that.
It wasn't even. Yeah. It was like, it was just, it was saying someone was trying to access my accounts. And if I didn't, just click this link to report it. So it wasn't like, to me, that seemed like legit. Clicked in there, like, gotcha. And I'm like, but I mean, it goes to show you.
Embarrassing. Yeah.
So
we're so vulnerable to this, but you guys were talking about like how AI could potentially help prevent security issues, but I'm more worried about like what the AI tools will do
against
when they're
us.
Actually being used to attack us too.
Yes.
So like it's going to go
definitely back and forth. It'll be a back and forth between the two. So
the AI will click every single link. That's what it's going to do.
So you also had this story, Robert, that you put in here from the Register, that it turns out Russia was paying 2 pro-Russian residents of Ukraine to operate a SIM farm attacking Ukrainian phones. What is a SIM farm?
So SIM farm is just you've set something up so that you can have multiple actual SIMs, either eSIMs or actual SIMs, and send out a mass of messages or a mass of whatever it is that you're trying to payload to a bunch of different numbers, hoping that 1 or 2 will click on them. And this SIM farm was actually targeting Ukrainian soldiers. Now, if they clicked the link, which was sent via SMS, the SIM farm would get root access to the phone, and that means anything that on the phone they would have access to. That's the microphone, that's the camera, that's the GPS system. So imagine you're trying to do a secure operation in the field, and some hacker has just managed to land themselves on 15 different phones in your platoon because someone clicked the link that said, here's a dating service, or look at this video. And it worked. It worked. And this was a small one, by the way. They found another one that was running, 15,000? This one was only running 600.
That's a modern warfare, isn't it? I mean, if you're in a war and you can convince the enemy's soldiers to click on a link on their phone, I mean, there's no rule. There's no Geneva Convention preventing that kind of cyber attack. Maybe there ought to be, but there isn't, right?
I mean, you should be telling your soldiers not to have phones. Period.
Well, that's what's interesting about Ukraine. In fact, we've had people on the show several times who said that's really what's scary about this Ukraine-Russia war is that it's a proving ground for modern cyber warfare technologies, and that including drones, and that these technologies are going to seep into warfare everywhere soon.
Because they're so cheap and they're asymmetrical. I can send a $10,000 drone and destroy a $14 million tank.
Right.
I mean, who's not going to do that if that's your business?
All right, let's take a little break. I want to tell you about a business that is very cool. I talked to them the other day, InTouch CX. Now, I'm an idiot. I said, what's the CX stand for? They said, Leo, customer experience. I said, oh, I'm not really up on this enterprise stuff, but I do know that companies, small and large, companies like ours, the relationship to your customers is everything, right? InTouch CX knows a major goal of your company is to give your customers an excellent customer experience. But how do you do that? Well, there are some really interesting techniques, and the most modern are used by InTouch CX. There's so many. You just have to go to the website and look at them. They work with brands around the world. They use AI. They use smart automation to automate the customer experience, not to automate away customer touch points, but to make them better, to make them more efficient, to do triage for every touch point across the entire customer journey. It's really an interesting technique. They train your customer. It's make it better for customer service reps, make it better for customers, make it better for your company. To provide a great customer experience, you've got to depend on a combination of talented people, efficient processes, and innovative technology. That technology supports these people in doing their job. But it only works when you've got the right mix of these things working together. And most companies, I'm sorry to say, you're probably one of them, are dealing with outdated, complex systems. Because times have changed. That makes it hard to meet your customers' needs, hard to retain your customer service agents because they're frustrated. They want to support your customers. Customer interactions have got to feel smooth for both sides, for your customers and your agents. And that's why InTouch CX improves the experience for both the agent and your customers at every point of the journey. They do this through innovative AI and automation. InTouch CX is an advisor you can rely on and trust. If you're ready to update your customer experience, to improve your relationship with your customers, to make your agents more effective and happier, to elevate your customer and agent experience, and to add AI and automation at every touch point, you need to talk to the people in InTouch CX. Whatever your company size, regardless of where your company is on its CX journey, InTouch CX can help you go the extra mile. Go to intouchcx.com/twit. Sign up for a free, no-obligation consultation. They'll create a tailored customer support strategy that includes this AI and smart automation customized specifically for your business. That's intouchcx.com/twit. intouchcx.com/twit. We thank them so much for supporting This Week in Tech. Maybe you can explain this to me, Devendra, because I didn't get this at all. This is from Reuters. Nokia CEO makes world's first immersive phone call. Do you have any idea what they're talking about here?
We have not reported any. I was surprised by this link, Leo, because we have not reported on this as being like a major thing happening. But I think it's more like whoever the Nokia CEO now just like wants headlines.
Do you think it's just a press release that somehow got turned into a Reuters dispatch? We have demonstrated the future of voice calls, says Pekka Lundmark, CEO of Nokia, which, by the way, as far as I know, no longer makes phones. HMD makes the Nokia branded phones, but Nokia doesn't. They make tires.
Nokia is just a brand now. I think this was maybe a press release. I don't know the full story here, but the technology does sound cool. If it is a thing, it's supposedly they're calling it immersive audio and video. So like the sort of like thing you get from Dolby Atmos, or
surround sound
audio.
Phone calls, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, more like specifically like directional, like if I think like maybe if like two people were sitting in front of you on a voice call or something, like maybe you would get like the actual spatial awareness of where they were. It sounds cool, but I'm not gonna be super excited about this at all. And also, it's not voice calls that we want these days. Nobody wants to do voice calls. We want to do
that's like, trying to say, who makes voice calls?
Text and video. That's all.
That's a good point. You're innovating in last century technology.
Well, it sounds like Nokia.
Also, don't most phones try to cancel out any other noise other than the person who's speaking? Do I really want a three-dimensional positioning of the car driving behind the person, the people at the next table at the Starbucks? I'm not sure if that's something I need.
Maybe it's positioning like the person or something, or if like you had your phone up and maybe the direction of the audio would like follow your phone or something. This just reminds me of like my first CES, and that was like maybe 2010, I think, where I had steak with the folks at Nokia and how blissfully unaware they were about the threat of the iPhone or Android or anything. They're like, no. We
have fine. A flip phone. Everybody wants flip phone. It's a great.
Everybody wants Nokias. And a couple of years later, they're gone.
They're gone.
So.
The technology is part of the upcoming 5G advanced standard. So it is in the standard. Nokia aims to get licensing opportunities, which would likely take a few years to be available widely. So forget I even mentioned it. I'll let you know when they get here.
The technology we need is for when folks of a certain age are taking their speakerphone calls in public. We need that active canceling information,
like all over the place.
Audio for external noise.
I'm walking behind. I mean, look, I'm 67, but I can call her a little old lady. She's probably younger than me. Talking like this, I blame the Kardashians because on reality TV you use the speakerphone like that so that the camera can pick it up. But for some reason it's gotten into the culture. People are talking on the phone like this, and you hear the call.
Localized audio.
Annoying.
Yeah.
What the hell?
Yeah.
It's
I'm seeing it all over the place too.
Are you?
Yeah. It's It's
terrible.
It's
I blame my generation. We boomers.
From a user experience. From a user
the last time I visited my parents. The last time I visited my parents in Las Vegas, my mother was doing that. So she had the phone on the table at a Starbucks with the speakerphone on, having a conversation, and the people at the next table, they were doing it too. And then the people on the other lines of the two speakerphones actually started talking to each other.
No.
Wait, who's that? Who's that?
Oh
This is
my
what
God.
AirPods were invented for. What the heck? And the other thing I'm seeing a lot more of these days is people who just play TikTok videos or YouTube videos on their phone.
Oh, LS.
Cranked up
At the airport.
and just watch it
everywhere.
Yeah.
Stop it.
It's like,
We need
We have
like
headphones.
localized audio. Yeah. I will say like the usability reason for it makes sense. Like if you get, I just have to hold up my phone, not to my ear because nobody holds up phones to their ears anymore, but just like talk to the person, quick conversation. I think that makes sense, but we have not solved for the externalities of people using their devices like that. And it sucks.
I think part of the
I
mistake.
like putting it to my ear
You do?
because it tells people, leave me alone.
You're
Don't-
like, yeah, you just
don't
walk
talk
through the
to me.
airport like this. You don't actually talk to anybody. You
Like
just
a
hold the
normal
phone.
human being, I'm on a phone call.
on a phone
right?
call. I'm
Also,
I
I don't know what the other person's going to say. Like, what if they say something really salty? Like,
That's true.
Sorry, everyone.
It's true.
You know,
Look, if I get a phone call, I'm assuming it's because someone's on fire or has been in an accident. If it's
Yes,
not
that's true,
that,
too.
text me.
Yeah.
yeah.
There is that. My 2-year-old is now doing like pretend phone calls. I'm like, where did you? Nobody's picking up phones and holding them to their ears anymore. Where did you learn that? And it turns out my wife she's a bit of an oldie when it comes to tech. So she still does that and she doesn't use her AirPods for phone calls. So that's where he's picking it up from. But nobody else I see is taking phone calls like that anymore.
Are we the harbingers of the future because we don't even do phone calls anymore? I mean, is that going to be in a few years? This won't be called a smartphone. It'll be called something else. Your data device or your handy.
No, it'll
It's
probably
your
be called
real personal
smartphone,
computer.
but
Yeah, and you'll
Yeah,
you'll still say I'm going to dial a call, even though there's been no
it'll be
dials.
like 50 years, they'll be like, why do they call them smartphones anyway? And it's like, well, back in the day,
What was
just
a
like how we
phone?
explain words now. Yeah, it's like we explain, the origins of words by doing that, right? Well, back in the day, the original usage of it was they're like, oh, I had no idea.
Oh, that was
yeah, they won't change.
before telepathy.
Leo, we still use a floppy disk icon for the save button.
for save.
Right? Yeah.
Well,
So it'll be around for a while.
is it still a handset? Yeah, it's still a handset on the iPhone. Nobody's had one of these handsets.
Yeah.
What's that? Why does it look like that, Daddy? Well, that's a kidney. That's how much I had to pay for this. What is that? You don't see phones like that anymore. Maybe you do it in an office.
Eventually, it'll just all be FaceTime, either FaceTime audio or FaceTime video, and then the FaceTime audio calls will be rarer.
What a world.
What a world.
What a world we live in. So Elon Musk, who is really salty over OpenAI going all profit and all that, and said, you should let me run it, to which OpenAI said, but apparently he sued them earlier this year. He's now withdrawn his lawsuit after the day before a hearing was scheduled in San Francisco. I think he did not want to face the judge with this, what is blatantly nonsensical lawsuit, since there was no contract, no formal written agreement. So it's all like, well, Your Honor, he said he was going to.
He's turning into Donald Trump of like tech. Like
I think he's
he
been
just every time
something happened.
every time something happens, he's like, I'm going to sue them, and it's just like, all right. Then it's like the lawsuit gets dropped. He loses it. Like he doesn't win a lot. The OpenAI thing is hilarious. Who remembers when he called for a moratorium on AI until we could get the safety on there?
And then immediately
money.
bought a lot of hardware.
Yeah.
Immediately.
Yeah, and behind the scenes, he's trying to build up his own company, and it's just going full steam ahead building AI. Like, what happened to the dangers? Oh, we're different. It's like, are you? And him calling out safety and security for running, and on with Tesla, it's just like. And I have a Model 3. Like, I like Tesla, right? But my car literally has a camera on the inside looking at me that has no function. It was supposed to be for the robo-taxi that was going to come at any moment. But, like, I just take it for granted that Tesla is not recording me. And then people are like, well, in my car, it works. Like, you could do it through the app. And I'm like, yeah, it's great. It doesn't in mine, though. So, like, what am I supposed to do?
Why would you want
know.
a camera recording you? Because the only thing that could be used for is an insurance company saying, see, Your Honor, he wasn't looking at the road.
Right. It was supposed to be for robo-taxi, so that if people damaged the inside of your car, you had it recorded. That was the original intent. They then converted it so that if you're doing full self-driving, which obviously
it'll know
is just
that
around the
you're
corner.
paying attention.
You're dozing off, you're falling asleep, which is a cool thing. Mine doesn't do any of that, probably because it doesn't have the actual hardware. I don't know. I'm taking their word for whatever reason, but I don't know. It's just weird.
I like you.
I will forgive Elon for all of that as long as he holds up to his word to fight Zuckerberg in a cage match.
Whatever happened to that?
Right.
Whatever happened?
Yeah, well, remember he had to have shoulder surgery?
Oh,
remember
yeah,
that
that's
was
right.
the excuse?
Oh, yeah.
What happened there? Again, I might have to have shoulder surgery, so we're going to call it off for now. And then, did you ever have the surgery? No.
Do you think like the only reason that we know this is because of Twitter and stuff, like Alexander Graham Bell and Thomas Edison were going to have a cage match too, but nobody knew because there was no Twitter at the time, and that the only real difference, the billionaires have always been nuts, but we just now know it. Is that it?
I mean, I think there was a lot written about the crazy things Edison
and others
did, Killed so it was just the medium at the time.
Was it Edison who killed the elephant, or was it, I can't remember who killed the elephant.
Yeah, I forgot which one,
Edison.
but yeah.
It was Edison, yeah.
Howard Hughes went out of his mind? I mean, come on.
He was wearing, at the end, he was wearing
United
Kleenex boxes on his feet to keep the germs away.
Maybe billionaires shouldn't exist because it just melts your brain, or maybe Musk was always like that. Who knows?
We may never know.
He made Zuckerberg look normal. I mean, that's that's a huge accomplishment. Right?
He made Zuckerberg look human.
We're all like, Zucks ain't so bad anymore, which is like a hell of a position to be in 2024.
TechCrunch did have an article last month on Mark Zuckerberg's makeover. Midlife crisis or carefully crafted rebrand? I guess
both.
World's best therapist. I think that's what it is. It's like he had somebody who could really help him talk out his life's problems while also compartmentalizing all the problems his companies have produced.
Apparently his wife, for his 40th birthday, convinced him to do a series of photos. This is his childhood bedroom where he learned to code, and he's wearing a T-shirt that says, and I only know this because I had a good classical education, Carthago delenda est, which is at the end of every, was it whose speech? Was it Cicero? At the end of every speech would say, Carthage must be destroyed. Now, why Mark Zuckerberg is wearing a T-shirt, and by the way, a very fetching gold chain that says Carthage must be destroyed, well, that's just an exercise we'll leave for the reader. Here he is in the same T-shirt in a very small room. Is this
he says Bill Gates in basketball
with an elderly gentleman?
Yeah,
this is his dorm room. It's like when they were in college, they were 3 feet tall. I don't understand.
What?
And this is his dorm. What's going on? And there's a lava lamp, which isn't on for some reason.
Hi, this is Benito. That looks like an AI picture.
You think that's fake?
It really does. But it looks like one.
Does.
It does look like one. But it's like very being John Malkovich. Like, oh, you're in a small room all of a sudden.
What is this little teeny weeny sofa that Bill Gates is sitting on in basketball shorts?
Give the man pants. Yeah.
Well, they both went to Harvard, remember? Neither graduated, but...
And Zuckerberg really looked up to Bill Gates. Like, Bill Gates was a big role model.
In this case, he's looking down at Bill Gates because
that's true.
Bill's sitting in a tiny sofa. This is his
Microsoft is Carthage.
You know what? Now I get it. These aren't real. They built little sets.
They built little sets.
They built little sets for this photo shoot.
The bedroom one looks real. It could be real, but
first apartment with just a mattress. No, but it's little. Look at the size of the chair.
Yeah.
This is
his the childhood bedroom one.
Oh, that looks real. Yeah, because he's a child, so he's full size. There's something going on, creepy as hell. Yeah, here it is. Office lockdown, where we worked all day and night to fight off competitors. Again,
build dioramas of his life in a warehouse or something?
It's a diorama.
What is
you can
going
go
on?
there, and it's all the same T-shirt, too. Here's Pinocchio's Pizzeria, where I basically lived in college. Now, this is his wife and his kids. There's Priscilla Chan and his 2 children. Happy Father's Day, Mark, by the way. This is
what lucky kids.
My girls. He's showing his kids the room where he grew up with tiny furniture. I don't. Did he wear?
Hey, we're talking about it, so
yeah.
Oh my!
But
God.
he has definitely
he looks happier. He looks happier now. So
is he happier now?
Yeah.
Is he? I don't know.
Seems it. I mean, I don't know. Seems like a guy that's finding control in his
Finding
life.
peace.
It just feels centered in a way, but I do think it's like it's either a combination of therapy or something. But it's like he has totally like cut off all the harms and all the things people were like blaming him for or what Facebook did, and is just like focusing on life in a weird way. And I find that honestly, I find it a little disturbing. As much as like we're talking about it being a glow up, it's weird. He's not like actively like dealing with the actual.
And then he was at a wedding in India recently where he wore an Alexander McQueen suit and followed up the following day with a luxurious organza shirt from Rahul Mishra. Here he is in this suit. Do you think he still looks like a robot, by the way?
Smiling. He's smiling. He has human skin
that's
tone
never
now.
going to go away. Yeah.
Yeah. He's tanned and smiling.
What the hell?
The Twitter
He's got dragonfly suit.
dragonflies. We need the Twitter suit guy to like deconstruct all of this.
This is the Alexander McQueen suit.
Oh, there he is. This is him. Is Mark Zuckerberg?
Derek guy, if you like the shearling
Yeah.
he's wearing, you can check out the Shot B3 Acne and Valstar. Well, this is the whole thing.
It's a well-cut suit.
Well-cut suit from
Looks good
Derek
on him.
Guy.
Yeah.
Oh, look at that shearling coat. Straight out of Succession. Wow. Eating a bagel or burger or something at McDonald's.
Burger.
Oh, yeah, it's McDonald's. Mickey D's. Okay.
He needs to grow out
Let's
the
stop
hair a
looking at
little bit more.
Zuckerberg. Yeah.
Still looks like a weird nerd.
The real news is the stuff happening to the Stanford Internet Observatory, by the way, which is freaking heartbreaking.
Okay,
It's
let's
just
talk.
so sad.
Let's talk about that. But first, a word from our sponsor, then we'll talk about it. I agree. It's very sad. Thank you for getting us back on track, Devinder Hardawar. We appreciate it. That's why he's the big guy at Engadget, senior editor over there.
Just the guy.
Just the guy. Just the guy. The big guy is Daniel Rubino, editor-in-chief, EIC at Windows Central. And, of course, Father Robert Balliser, who talks to the big guy daily, the digital Jesuit. Our show today brought to you by Panoptica. Panoptica is Cisco's cloud application security solution, and it provides end-to-end lifecycle protection for cloud-native application environments. Panoptica empowers organizations to safeguard their APIs, serverless functions, containers, and Kubernetes environments. Panoptica ensures comprehensive cloud security, compliance, and monitoring at scale, offering deep visibility, contextual risk assessments, and actionable remediation insights for all your cloud assets. Powered by graph-based technologies, Panoptica's Attack Path Engine prioritizes and offers dynamic remediation for vulnerable attack vectors, helping security teams quickly identify and remediate potential risks across cloud infrastructures. A unified cloud-native security platform is what you want. It minimizes gaps from multiple solutions. It provides centralized management and reduces non-critical vulnerabilities that you get from fragmented systems. Panoptica utilizes advanced attack path analysis, root cause analysis, and dynamic remediation techniques to reveal potential risks from an attacker's viewpoint. Wow. This approach identifies new and known risks, emphasizing critical attack paths and their potential impact. Panoptica provides several key benefits for businesses at any stage of cloud maturity, including advanced CNAPP multi-cloud compliance, end-to-end visualization, and the ability to prioritize with precision and context. It provides dynamic remediation and increased efficiency with reduced overheads. Visit panoptica.app to learn more. Panoptica, panoptica.app. And we thank Panoptica so much for their support of This Week in Tech. Was it the Panopticon? Was that was it Jeremy Bentham's plan for a prison where prisoners would be observed, but they didn't know when, so they could be being observed at any time and they'd have no idea? We all live in that.
Well, it's Panopticon is just an architectural design in which the control of the whatever it is, the facility, is part of the architecture. So
Right.
if you build something that's designed to observe the rest of the building, that's a Panopticon.
Here is Bentham's original. Oh no, this is Willie Reveley's drawing of Jeremy Bentham's original design, and you can see the prisoners had no idea if they were being observed at any time, but they could be. The idea was, well, that encourages good behavior. which is why there's a camera on every corner of every street in America. All right. Now, let's talk about the Stanford Internet Observatory, which, sad to say, is no more. Its former director, Alex Stamos, was a regular on our shows. Very smart guy. I guess the writing was on the wall when Stamos left a few months ago. Mm-hmm. But the interesting story is why Stanford is closing its Internet Observatory. It was designed to watch for misinformation, in particular for attempts to affect elections from outside nations. I think provided a very important information for the last two elections. But just in time for the 2024 election, it is being dismantled. Why is this such a big story, Devendra?
First of all, this is going to be great, folks. This election year is going to be terrible.
No misinformation. No one will
Nothing
attempt
happening.
to affect this election. It's going to be fine.
It's, so first of all, Stanford says that the work of the SIO is going to continue in other forms, is what they're saying. But I just remember seeing all the, basically all the conservative pushback against this organization. I believe they were sued 3 times.
And worse, in the lawsuits, the names of students as well as staff were revealed, were doxxed. And that's a big deal. These conservative groups allege that the SIO's researchers colluded illegally with the federal government to censor speech, when in fact what they did is provided the government and platforms with information about misinformation, disinformation campaigns from other nations, particularly Russia. Stanford was forced to spend millions of dollars to defend its staff, according to Casey Newton and Zoe Schiffer in the Platformer newsletter.
I feel like that's the reason, is that it was probably too successful at what it was trying to do, and the pushback, especially big money conservative pushback, was probably too much for Stanford to deal with. It's a shame, because I thought this was such a necessary thing, coming basically after the 2016 elections, and we have not even fully reckoned with how misinformation and disinformation shaped that whole period. We're still living with kind of the outcomes of that today. I'm just, a little terrified of what we're walking into with this election.
I don't, I'm always trying not to be political, not succeeding very well, because paying attention. If you pay attention,
life is politics right now.
If you pay attention, you might be a little political. But let me read this paragraph from Platformer. In parallel to these lawsuits by the conservative groups, Republican House Judiciary Chairman Jim Jordan and his Orwellian subcommittee on the weaponization of the federal government have subpoenaed documents at Stanford and other universities, selectively leaked fragments of them to friendly conservative outfits, and misrepresented their contents in public statements. And in an actual weaponization of government, Jordan's committee has included students, both undergraduates and graduates, in its subpoena requests, publishing their names and putting them at risk of threats or worse. So thank you, Jim Jordan and the subcommittee on the weaponization of the federal government. I think in years to come, this will be viewed very much like Senator McCarthy's House Un-American Activities Committee was viewed. And it's quite shameful.
But the support for it now is also far greater than I think that was at the time.
Yeah, maybe you're right. Yeah. I don't know.
If an institution like Stanford, with deep pockets and with a good reason to keep doing this, finally pulled out and said it's too much, no more. What smaller group would be able to pick up the mantle from the SIO and continue this work? There's nothing out there.
Well, you remember Harvard had a similar disinformation group at the Berkman Center, which they've basically shut down. There is pressure across the board on institutions not to investigate disinformation, not to investigate collusion and foreign government interference in our elections. I wonder why, and I wonder who that's coming from.
No reason, folks.
No reason. It's just chance.
Yeah. Just chance.
Just a coincidence. It's a wild.
Nothing to see here.
Nothing to see here.
Just move on.
Continuing to point out perfidy in all its guises, T-Mobile, you may remember, offered a lifetime price lock back in 2017. They literally said T-Mobile will never change the price you pay. John Brodkin, writing in Ars Technica, says, guess what happened next? By the way, every time the federal government steps in to prevent a merger, as they did with T-Mobile and Sprint for the longest time, as Comcast, Universal, I mean, I can go on and on and on. In every respect, these companies, and every time say, oh, no, this is not going to increase. We're not going to. What? We wouldn't increase prices. We wouldn't fire people. We wouldn't. Oh, no. This merger has nothing to do with that. And every single time, every single time it does.
And there's no penalties.
And there's no penalty. They get away with it.
Of course not. Yeah.
T-Mobile now says, first of all, there were some weasel words. Because in the FAQ that they published in January 2017, when they promised not to raise rates ever again, what happens, here's the question, what happens if you do raise the price of my T-Mobile One service? T-Mobile said, well, really, the only guarantee is we'll pay your final month's bill if the price goes up and you decide to cancel. That's it. The uncontract is our commitment that only you can change what you pay, and we mean it. To show just how serious we are, we've committed to pay your final month's recurring service charges if we were to raise prices and you choose to leave. Just let us know in writing within 60 days.
Talk about like great marketing campaigns, by the way, like the whole uncarrier thing. I was covering mobile and T-Mobile quite a bit, like when that started. That was like 2013. But it was all stuff that sounded great in headlines, right? And I don't know how much of it has actually survived.
Well, this is the problem. The media doesn't they only cover the headline, and then after 3 years later, when it all falls apart, they don't say anything.
Well, no, I mean, come on. The media, like, this is media. You're reading Ars Technica covering this.
Okay, you're right. I mean, mainstream media. I mean,
mainstream for sure.
You're right. I mean, you guys look, the tech industry is actually getting pretty good about calling these guys on their bluff.
I mean, tech criticism is much stronger now than it was a decade ago too. So I feel like, people are like actively looking for it. It's just funny, like searching for this. I see a story from 2017 in Engadget talking about T-Mobile retiring their free data for life iPad promotion.
Remember that? Yeah,
which started in 2012, I believe, or 2013. Yeah. So nothing is for life from a tech company.
No, and be suspicious when they make offers like that. And
When the CEO looks too young for his age, be suspicious.
I think this is why, though, people are increasingly wanting more government intervention, ironically, even though people don't trust government with this stuff. But it's just because there's like, okay, they'll get some bad press from this. Some people may switch or drop them, but probably not. But like I said, there's no repercussions for doing it. You can just kind of go out there, say these things, and they'll just take the hits, but they'll just continue going on. So it's like, the telecom stuff is ridiculous, and especially how all the mergers have happened, and you have 3 choices now, and even Mint Mobile got swallowed by T-Mobile,
they got purchased. Our sponsor, Mint Mobile, got purchased by T-Mobile. Although, thank goodness, they're still offering the deals. How does that work with an MVNO? How come an MVNO, a mobile virtual network operator like T-Mobile, whether company owned or not, can sell the same service for less?
Priority. It's because they don't get priority on the network.
But I have never noticed a slowdown on Mint Mobile. I mean, it's not
right.
It's more a theoretical. But then there's
also
right.
Yeah, there's also like silly stuff. Like when I fly Delta, you get free Wi-Fi for T-Mobile, but I'm on Mint Mobile. But T-Mobile owns Mint Mobile. Guess what happens when I enter my phone number? I don't get it.
You don't get it.
So it's just like,
That's a good point.
So there's all those like sub deals.
I don't get the free Disney Plus subscription bundle. I don't get the
So quick life hack for anyone who's flying Delta. You don't need to be a T-Mobile subscriber. You just need to know someone who uses T-Mobile.
Oh. And then what?
You just put in their phone number.
Oh, and that's it. Well, I do notice it's interesting on, was it on JetBlue? You could still send text messages even if you don't sign up for the free stuff, right? They get, like you have some connectivity, which is weird.
They're doing that more and more.
Yeah.
I mean, I was just on a couple Delta flights and it was just like, hey, T-Mobile is giving everybody free internet. And there was no
Right,
like
it was an
log
ad.
in with your T-Mobile.
It was just an ad.
It was an ad, and everybody got the internet. It wasn't bad. So
Yeah.
It feels like, we were talking earlier, this is a continuation of the same thing where the billionaires can say BS and just walk away from it. And the companies apparently can do the same thing. It's just the same. It's two sides of the same coin.
I'm happy to see the FTC taking a stronger hand in some things now. Like people are complaining that maybe they're going a little too far, but I don't know. I think all these companies, we should be looking extra close at them.
I got in a big fight with Paul Thurrott because he was mad at the FTC for slowing down the Activision Blizzard acquisition by Microsoft.
And that really helped all those workers at Activision Blizzard,
who immediately got laid
fired.
off. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I said, don't knock the FTC, don't knock Lena Khan, because that's the last stand against these people. No one else is stopping them.
Yep.
Now maybe Activision Blizzard, I mean, in the long run, the acquisition went through. Were you in favor of that, Daniel? Did you care about that?
I was in favor of it, but like I thought her arguments, like I'm all for her looking at tech and closer eye, and I was okay with them looking at the case, but I thought their argumentation against the acquisition was ridiculous because Microsoft is, although Xbox is there, they're in a distant third,
right,
behind Nintendo and Sony, and Sony is still doing very, very well. And Sony does a lot of stuff like getting exclusives. Like Sony drives the whole exclusive console advantage thing. And, this wasn't going to give Microsoft an unfair advantage, especially since Microsoft was going out of its way to make deals and say, we'll give you Call of Duty for 10 years. We're not going to take it off your platform. Like they were making these public promises and signing contracts. I thought it was a little like, I just thought it was one of those, they thought it would be an easy win publicly, but they were isolated. All the rest of the regulatory agencies around the world signed off on it. Right? No, it's fine.
Right,
it was UK. UK had some issues. They wanted to offload some of the cloud stuff.
That was confusing because there isn't even a business in cloud gaming. So to protect the non-existent business of cloud gaming,
I think they just want to pick something. They just wanted to pick something.
Yeah, but Microsoft was like, fine, we'll do that too. So I just thought it was a weird thing. I'm happy with them, and not because I think it's like, but Google, Apple, looking at their market practices, I think is good too. And it's not because it's not Microsoft, but Apple has come into a very dominant position. I don't necessarily even blame Apple for doing what they're doing because, especially with the App Store stuff, I understand it because iPhone sales are kind of flattening out. We all have iPhones. If anything, their market share has grown, especially in the United States. But the only consistent source of revenue for them is going to be from the store. And so they don't want to reduce stats because it hurts their stock. So I totally understand why, but is it good for the market?
So this is and maybe you guys can help me because this is the conundrum I deal with. On the one hand, I don't think it's good for companies to become that big. I think that a free market only works if there's free competition, that everybody's striving to produce the best product to succeed in the marketplace. That's when a free market works. And once a company becomes as big as almost all of our tech companies are, that kind of breaks the whole model. I don't think there's any legal grounds for saying Microsoft shouldn't be able to buy Activision Blizzard.
That was a really big deal.
But that's I think, a consolidation in a way that I think doesn't probably help the game community or the game industry.
Yes.
But
I don't think they couldn't have argued that. Like that's the unfortunate thing.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, because it's not against the law to be big is not against the law. So, but on the other hand, the other side of me says, but unless you're of a certain size, nowadays it takes hundreds of millions of dollars to do a AAA game title.
Yeah.
Right? You can't there's nobody in his garage going to make a AAA game title. Only an Apple could create a Vision Pro spending tens of billions of dollars over a decade to make a product nobody wants. Only a big company could do that. So innovation, in some ways, innovation does require that size, that scale. So that's why I'm conflicted. I don't know.
It's I feel like it's multiple arguments here, but specifically when it comes to the gaming industry, there's a ton of consolidation. Like at Engadget, we have been tracking like how layoffs have been just like going throughout the entire industry. I believe in this year we've already surpassed the amount of layoffs that happened throughout all of 2023.
And the consequence of that is that you don't see innovation in games. You see sequels. You see more of the same first-person shooters. You don't see innovative, interesting games so much because these big companies can't afford it.
No. I think you're wrong about that, Leo. So, like, I've covered games for
Benito Gonzalez, our technical producer. I got to introduce him so everybody knows who that voice from nowhere is. And Benito used to cover gaming, right?
Yeah, I used to work for GameSpot as an editor. Anyway, what you're saying is exactly right and wrong at the same time.
That's my problem.
Because you're saying that only these giant corporations can make AAA games, and that's just not true. And also, it doesn't mean that AAA games are any better than all the other games. AAA games right now are actually quite terrible.
I agree, but that's because of consolidation.
No, that's not because of consolidation. That's because the giant companies can't take risks anymore because they're giant companies.
Because they're giant companies, right? It's the same thing in the movie industry, right? You still have small art house movies, but they're not many. And you have an awful lot of DC and Marvel
It's
comic
a very
movies.
crowded market space. Yeah, I mean, I personally, I do Steam. I have Game Pass,
Steam's
but I do
incredible.
a lot of Steam.
Yeah, Game Pass is great.
And I do it because there's a lot of indie games.
And I hear this Kirby game is amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, which I would play if it was on Steam, but I don't because Nintendo
don't play that. Nintendo is all about its own platforms.
Yeah.
But I mean, to the core argument here, though, like I personally was like really ambivalent about this deal and kind of didn't want it to go through for Microsoft and Activision because there is already too much consolidation.
That was my position.
Industry.
Yeah.
The acquisition also means a lot of people are going to lose their jobs basically because of redundancies within a single organization. What Microsoft has shown is also they're releasing these games and immediately killing the studios producing these games too.
Award-winning big selling games,
award-winning big selling games. Hi-Fi Rush was like one that was a small game that did really well. That studio was killed, even though it was super successful. And Microsoft executives went on and said, we need to make more, smaller games that are cheaper to buy and easier to make. And they went ahead and killed that studio that made that same type of game. So
to be fair, because I love that game and that studio was amazing. From what I understand, it wasn't so much about the studio per se, it was their location.
Yeah.
So this has to do with when you consolidate. I think everybody forgets too, when you buy companies, sometimes everybody thinks the company you're buying is A+ across the board, most efficient, everything run. Sometimes you buy a company and then you open their books and you go through things and you're like, ooh, okay, we got some issues here. Just like if someone bought Microsoft, I'm sure they would be like, Microsoft has some issues. And so where that studio was in terms of location and timing made it really difficult for them to organize games and schedules and testing with Microsoft back in Redmond. So it was sort of the same issue with Nokia. I hate to say it, based in Finland. They bought them and they're like, all right, guys, you can come to Seattle. And, because it just wasn't going to work with them all being in Finland, different hours and stuff. So sometimes it's just a strategic decision. It wasn't like a personal thing. I know that's a crappy answer if you're like, one, a developer that worked there, or two, you really love the game. But unfortunately, these are the realities of like running businesses.
That's ultimately it. Like you are an inconvenient part of this organization now. Bye. And I think I just think that's deeply unfair and it stinks. It just like stinks. And I don't think the gaming industry or gamers or anybody really benefited from Microsoft buying this company. Game Pass is going to benefit. Call of Duty is going to be on Game Pass.
And Microsoft didn't think about that before they bought the company. Like they knew where they were located, right? Did they not know where they were located?
They probably didn't know.
I'm sure they
one
did.
Small studio,
It was a very small part of it. Yeah, I'm sure they saw some stuff and had some ideas, but once it was acquired, then they had to make some decisions. And it's tough running a business. Like I know a lot of our own writers are very much against all these layoffs, and no one likes to see it. But this is the system that people subscribe to, right? And it's just like, this is what happens when you have massive corporations. Whether we should is a separate issue.
Maybe they're too big. Yeah.
Well, that's kind of the fundamental question. Because on the one hand, obviously, giant corporations are less responsive to their customers, less creative, less innovative, more protective. less likely to take chances. On the other hand, it takes a lot of money, a lot of capital,
to make this stuff happen.
To make things happen, especially nowadays. Look at creating an LLM is a non-trivial process requiring huge amounts of compute. You're not going to do that in your garage. So
I mean, some would argue maybe we shouldn't be creating, some of these.
I agree. I agree with the points being made by the panel. But can I play devil's advocate?
If not you, who?
How does that work?
So, all right. I understand. I don't want people to lose their jobs, especially at indie studios that are creating some incredible content. I want them to be able to innovate. And what they have that larger studios and larger platforms don't have is they have less inertia. The larger you are, the more that you can spend on development, but it also means you move slowly. Indie studios are small and they can move quickly. They can fail quickly and then move on. But to say that nothing is gained by Microsoft gobbling up a smaller studio, I think reduces it too much, because there is something there, and that is the ecosystem of indie studios. Not every indie studio is going to become a Microsoft. Not every indie studio is going to become a huge studio, but what it can contribute by selling itself is value for the initial investors in that studio, probably value for some of the
I'm not talking about indies
employees / investors.
No, we're talking about Activision.
We're talking about Activision.
The reason
Bobby
Kotick sold Activision is because if he didn't, it was not going to be pretty.
No, I understand that, but I mean, we also folded in this idea that Microsoft buys small studios as well, and there's nothing to be gained by letting it swallow up smaller studios.
Right.
And I think
you can make a stronger argument that they shouldn't be allowed to do that. That's a case-by-case
basis.
Yeah.
They shouldn't be swallowing up all of them.
But that's where the incentive is.
Where do you draw that line?
That's
and while we're doing devil's advocate, I mean, the reason why Microsoft wanted to buy Activision is because they don't have enough strong IP that they can exclusively release on Xbox to compete with Sony. Like Sony makes a lot of these in-house games, they sign exclusive deals, and they're really good at it. Now, if Sony didn't do that, because even like Nadella has come out and said, like, we don't like doing exclusives for our platform. We wish that didn't exist. So if there was this like blanket rule that you can't have exclusives to platforms, which would be pretty hard to enforce and make happen, but you wouldn't see this happening with companies buying studios, because that's what they're doing. They're trying to buy these studios. So like they don't make stuff exclusive to their platform as a game like Call of Duty, but they do make it exclusive for Game Pass, which is part of their next selling point for users. Right. And so, if we could get away from this exclusive stuff and this battle, then you wouldn't see this problem with companies because ideally these Sony and Xbox should just be making the hardware. They shouldn't be publishers at all, right? But this gets into that bigger discussion of who controls what.
Let's not forget, they also got, and I think they needed this too, mobile gaming. They didn't really have a good play in mobile gaming, and they got King, right?
And that was a more like viable, like, yes, we are a big business. We don't have this component in our business. Let's get this. But Microsoft certainly had a lot of like big budget studios. Like they've had big IP. It's just they keep failing, especially with this generation of consoles. Like Halo Infinite was delayed for far too long. Like a lot of the things that they built up, Starfield was another thing that they've been hyping up for a while. Kind of came and went and died. So it's just also like a series of failures.
I was so excited about Starfield. It was so disappointing. It was kind of a mess. Yeah, it's too bad. Hey, let's take a break, and I do want to ask you what games you guys are playing, and we have some final thoughts in just a little bit. You're watching This Week in Tech with a great panel, Father Robert Balacer, who it's getting late in beautiful Rome. The sun has gone down.
A little bit.
The bells are ringing. The pigeons have left St. Mark's Square. Oh no, that's Venice. Never mind. Anyway, it's great to have you. Thank you for being here. I appreciate it. Also with us from Windows Central, he's the editor-in-chief, Daniel Rubino. Lovely to have you. When did you get back from Computex? Not recent. I hope you're over your jet lag, yes?
I'm just getting over it. But yeah, I got back Wednesday. I got out of there as soon as I could, but I love Taipei. It is an amazing city.
I've always wanted to go.
And it's just great.
Yeah.
You would love it, Leo.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I hate getting there, though.
Yeah, it's a long flight.
It takes me It's about 25 hours of actual travel time for me to get there.
Holy cow.
It's just,
that's awful.
It's brutal.
Yeah.
It's brutal.
And Devinder Hardawar just back from the brutal trip to Cupertino, California.
I mean, it was a brutal flight back because coming back from the West Coast to the East Coast is a pain. But I miss Computex. That's a great. I miss I even miss the plane trip because it was like a whole day of just like to yourself.
You know, I always get an invitation to go as a junket by various groups, and I feel journalistically I just can't accept it. But maybe I'm after I'm out of all this, I can do it because I really want to go. It looks like it's so much fun. Maybe next year. Maybe. Our show today brought to you by Bitwarden. Love these guys. This is the open source password manager that works on everything you use: Windows, Mac, Linux, iOS, Android. That supports infinite passwords. It supports every feature you'd want a password manager: secure, powerful, has enterprise and Teams versions. It's just, it is the solution that can dramatically increase your chances of staying safe online. And yeah, I know everybody's saying, well, passkeys are going to replace passwords. Well, A, they're not. B, Bitwarden supports passkeys beautifully. In fact, they not only support it on the desktop apps, but they now support passkeys on their browser extensions and mobile devices, which means one passkey on every device for every site. That's a great way to go. You could take your passkeys with you wherever you log in. Passkeys on mobile are available on iOS, open beta on Android, and stay tuned, more information to come. Bitwarden knows people do not, and we all know this, do not do the right thing when it comes to passwords. Last month, they surveyed 2,400 individuals from around the world. 31% of U.S. respondents admitted to reusing passwords across sites. 42% incorporate personal information, dog's name, mother's maiden name, birth date, meaning your password's strength and security. 58% of respondents continue to use their memory to keep track of the passwords. 58%. 34% use pen and paper at work, which means there's a pretty good chance your employees have written the corporate passwords down on a Post-it note and put it on the side of their monitor. Nearly a quarter of respondents say, yeah, we know our workplace security habits are risky. 45% store passwords insecurely. Again, Post-it notes. 44% use weak credentials. There is a lot of room for improving security. That's why you need Bitwarden. Bitwarden empowers enterprises, developers, and yes, individuals to store and share sensitive data. With a transparent open source approach to password management, Bitwarden makes it easy for users to extend robust security practices to all their online experiences. And I want to tell you this because I know you all use password managers because you're good, smart geeks. When your friends and family say, what should I do? Tell them Bitwarden is free for individuals, free forever, because it's open source. Get started for free across all devices as an individual user. It's the best password manager, and it's free for them to use. You can get a free trial of the Teams or Enterprise plan, too, if you go to bitwarden.com/twit. This is the only way. This is the way. bitwarden.com/twit. And we thank him so much for supporting our network. I've been recommending him for years, and I'm a very happy Bitwarden customer. So is Steve Gibson, which should give you some confidence as well. bitwarden.com/twit. I just read somebody was breached because the developer put an API key on committed it on a git commit. I'm trying to remember who that was. It happens a lot, right? It's easy to do by accident. It's just terrible.
I almost did that once, so I
hasn't?
can't laugh too much.
Right?
Yeah.
But it's there are very simple ways to encrypt them before you do that. It's just that Bitwarden supports the secrets like that. All right. What game are you playing, Father Robert Ballas? Are you still doing the Factorio?
A little bit, but so I've gotten back into the Rust survival.
Yeah, you were a big
universe.
Rust guy. Yeah.
I was big for a while, and they've done a lot of updates, so I'm sort of just poking around. But what I'm spending most of my gaming time is on another playthrough of the entire BioShock collection. I know it's old, but I kind of love that story.
I've done it twice. I know exactly what you mean. It is such an innovative. There's an example of, it was a trilogy, and such an innovative, different feeling and look, and I just loved those games. They were fun to play. That's fun.
That was the first game I ever played where they included that sort of emotional moral choice as part of the game mechanic.
Yes.
And I could not choose the kill the sisters choice.
Oh, wow.
Even when I wanted to, I just couldn't do it.
Did you throw the baseball at the guy? That was
that is the most useless weapon. That does not work at all. That is terrible. The little bee thing.
Yeah.
The mind control ball.
The mind control ball. There you go. It's on Steam.
Yeah,
on Steam.
Padre, I got a question real quick. Did you shoot the civilians in no Russian?
No. And you don't have to. You can just sit there and walk until you get to the animatic.
Yeah.
What game is that?
Call of Duty.
Call of Duty.
You know, there's one scene, like the big controversial scene where you play a Russian terrorist and you're supposed to gun down a whole airport.
Every time I play Call of Duty, it's so hairy. The minute you enter, that it's like
That's just multiplayer.
Yeah, I suppose if I were playing a campaign, it would be different. The same thing with Fortnite. Like, the only good thing about Fortnite is you die. I would die immediately, but at least I could watch the game continue. I'm not good at it.
Actually, Leo, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Thinking of your Steam account, your Steam library, how many games are in your Steam library that you've never played?
A lot. Because every time you recommend a game...
Oh, no!
I too have a massive Steam library with a lot of...
Yeah. I buy stuff on sale. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, they go on sale. Forget
I
about
figure
it.
someday I'll play. Whatever. I can log in. It's a big process to log in. Let me see if I can do the QR code recognition, because I'll show you how many games I have. There was one really, for me, big announcement. There were 3 announcements at the Apple event that I thought were undercovered. One was that they're going to RCS in the fall, which means that finally Apple Messages users will have encrypted conversations with Android users. They can have group conversations, and they can send full quality video and audio. That's huge. So that was one.
Well, Apple itself barely mentioned that, by the way. It was the recap for iOS 18. They were like, oh, by the way, there's RCS.
It was in the bento box, and they mentioned it.
It was in the end.
What they really didn't mention, and I thought this was even bigger, was you're going to be able in iOS 18 to rename Siri. You can call her anything you want. That's huge.
That's going to be problematic.
That's going to be an issue. Yeah.
Seriously.
You know what? This was a feature of the Moto X 10 years ago. And I
love the Moto X. Oh, man. Yeah.
My trigger on the Moto X, instead of "Hey Goog," was "Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi," and I thought that was really useful because
especially in public,
right?
Yeah,
unless you're at a Star Wars convention, then it maybe wouldn't be so good. But Siri gets triggered all the time, easily. And then the third announcement, which only I noticed, was that Valheim, which is my game, is coming to Mac OS.
Game?
Yeah. Valheim. So what's interesting about Apple Silicon is because essentially the iPhone, the iPad, and the Mac all run the same processors and it's very similar operating systems, games will run on all 3 platforms. So
they run pretty well.
Yeah,
because of that GPU.
So Assassin's Creed is going to be available day and date on all 3 as well as Windows, which is, I thought, very interesting. But Valheim is my personal favorite. That's the one where it's like Minecraft for Vikings. You're a Viking.
You know, Leo, I have Valheim. We could do some co-op.
Oh, I wouldn't mind. I'd like to do that with you. Yeah, we could build a little hut together, you and me.
Let's start your Twitch channel, Leo.
I get killed by everything though, so yeah.
I'll protect you. I streamed Valheim for a little while on Twitch.
Yeah,
and it was fun.
Nice.
I mean, I got 5 followers. It's not. What are you playing these days, Daniel?
So I do stick to mostly indies, and so I'm playing a game called Anomaly Agent, which is available on Steam. Yeah, it's its description's a cyberpunk action adventure featuring fluid combat, time-bending story, quirky characters, and a catchy synthwave soundtrack. It's a really funny game.
It's a platformer. Interesting.
Yeah, it's a platformer. It's got a real sense of humor to it. It's got some weirdness to it. It's just different. I'm just such a fan of like growing up in the 80s. I love the whole cyberpunk synthwave thing that we're kind of going through again.
And by the way, 8-bit platformers are very, very popular, roguelike games and so forth, which is good because that's the kind of thing indie studios can do. You don't need a giant team to make this. You just need some good gaming ideas, some puzzle ideas, things like that. Cool.
Yeah, it's a fun game. It's casual. You can just pick it up and play. It's just, I don't know. It's one of those games that'll make you smile, and it's got a cool soundtrack. So yeah, I just give them a plug.
Good. We keep mentioning Pentiment, which seems to me like something Father Robert should actually be playing because you're a medieval monk wandering around
that's
Europe.
my day job. I don't want to be gaming that.
And it doesn't have a synth soundtrack. It has more like a Gregorian chant soundtrack. So
it's the Halo soundtrack, basically.
I've been waiting to buy Pentiment on sale or something like that. Actually, I was going to say my
Game Pass. It's on Game Pass. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So I'll have to try
it's on sale right now for $12, 40% off. There's no excuse. Big Father's Day sale.
I gotta get it.
There we go. The big game I'm waiting for and I'm super excited about is the new Doom Dark Ages.
Oh yeah, that looks really good. Yeah, they showed that last week at the Xbox event. Yeah, that looks really cool.
The new Doom games have just been so extraordinarily good. And it's been a while since, Doom 2, the last one came out. But this announcement and the where they're taking it, I think is just awesome. Like, it's just such a creative direction for the character.
It's also the Middle Ages, right? You're also medieval times. Yeah. Doom.
Yeah, it's got
the medieval times. How great is that? Yeah.
It's just insanity when you watch the trailer. Like, he has a gun that he wears on his wrist where it crushes demon skulls and then shoots the bones out.
Man, bring that to the catacombs. That sounds
all right. Let's do that.
Let's rock. All right. Did I ask you, Devendra, what are you playing these days?
Not yet, but I do have to say, Father, forgive me. I'm playing a lot of Hades 2. So
Hades is hot. We talked about this last week.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. I've been playing it with my daughter. We basically do a little bit of game time as like story time, and she's getting really into Greek mythology because of it too, and she enjoys watching me play it. And it's a fantastic little game.
How old is your daughter?
She's 5 years old.
She's playing Hades?
She's like, she wants me to explain like what's up with these gods. Why do they all hate each other?
That's pretty cool.
Like, I've always been interested, and there are actually a lot of great kids books that simplify the stories, take a lot of the worst parts out or the most adult aspects out, and we're reading those, and she just digs it. It's a lot of fun. I also went to.
Go ahead. Is it fair to call Supergiant an indie?
They're absolutely an indie studio. That is true indie, but and I've loved every single game that they've made too. So they're fantastic. Another indie thing that has gotten really popular is Animal Well, which is a cool
I've been dying to play this. Thing. You playing it?
It's cool. It's great.
Oh, I really want to play this one.
And I just love the format of 2D side scrollers.
Yes.
Like that's what I grew up on, and I love that indie studios are just kind of it's a really easy, format to make. I love Metroidvania type games too. So Hades and this sort of thing. Hades is like an evolution of that with like, different directions and whatnot. But I love 2D. That is where my heart will always be.
Again, this is a individual developer. This is a very
one guy did everything.
Yep.
The engine, the music, everything, I believe.
What it shows really is, despite the attention paid to engines and graphics and all of this, that the gameplay is what really makes a game.
This is what I was saying about AAA games.
Yeah. They may look gorgeous, but if there's no gameplay, who cares? But then there's Baldur's Gate 3, right, Benito?
Well, there you go.
I wasn't even that into that game. So.
He likes Dwarf Fortress. Talk about indie games.
Balatro.
Actually, do you remember Cuphead?
Yeah.
Cuphead it was visually stunning.
The hardest game ever.
Playing.
It was too hard.
Oh, God.
It was too hard.
Yeah.
It was hard to tell what was happening because of the animation.
So fast. Our 21-year-old has beaten it 3 times.
Wow.
That guy's Cuphead isn't that hard. Really, isn't it?
Cuphead is
compare that. No, really. Compare that to Super Mario 1. Even Super Mario 1 was harder than Cuphead.
Benito.
Your IGN is showing, Benito. Yeah.
Before we go, I don't like to, but I often want to end shows by marking the passing of pioneers in the industry. And a little sung but very important pioneer passed away this past week, Lynn Conway. She wrote the book on very large-scale integration, VLSI, taught VLSI courses in 1978. But very sadly, she invented the superscalar architecture at IBM, was fired in 1968 after she revealed her intention to transition. IBM said, "You what? No." And now, 52 years later, IBM formally apologized to her in 2020. She, despite being fired from IBM, continued her research in VLSI. She got the 2009 IEEE Computer Society Pioneer Award. She was truly a pioneer, not just in technology, but also as a trans engineer who paved the way for many others. So, R.I.P. Lynn Conway, age of 86.
Amazing story. I love hearing, these reminiscences of very influential people that we don't really talk about.
We don't know about even. I mean, I think people know
important.
VLSI and they know how important that is. It still is important. Even, in Bitcoin, things like that. But probably don't know the woman who created it. Who did the research, who shaped the way chips are designed for 50, 60 years. And it's a tragic story that ended up happy. She left IBM, went to Xerox PARC, and then on to DARPA. She taught electrical engineering and computer science until her retirement in 1998. So I think worth mentioning. Yeah.
Glad to hear that IBM apologized also, by the way, for the way they've treated her. But did IBM ever apologize for the whole Nazi thing?
Oh, the Nazi thing, no.
The Nazi thing? We're just going to let that go.
It
That
cracks
was just
me up.
business.
Yeah.
Yep.
That was just business. Although if you go to the Computer History Museum, they have a whole section devoted to what IBM did for Nazis in the beginning of the Nazi era. They pulled out, I think, when we went to war with Germany, but before.
That's interesting. I think the most interesting recollection I've ever seen of like Nazi, not quite memorabilia, but of the influence it had in Berlin. I believe there is it's a museum about the history of movie making. I forget what it's actually called, but they have a whole separate section where it's all just Nazi propaganda film, and it's all like locked away in a way so you can watch it, but also it is very much like presented in a way like this is a dark memory that we live through as a country and as a city. Yeah. So yeah, IBM, I don't know. I would love to see something eventually because every time I'm reminded of that, it is disappointing as hell.
Well, there's another one, Volkswagen celebrating its 75th anniversary.
There's always Volkswagen.
When in fact, they're a little older than 75 years, but they'd probably not want to remember those first 10. Yeah, we're celebrating our 75th anniversary. That's the anniversary of Volkswagen in America. They have a history that predates that a little bit.
That's all they're going to talk about.
That's all they're going to talk about. And you know what? I don't really blame them. That was a different time and different people.
Yeah, I mean, America didn't even join that war until World
That's
War.
a good point.
I mean, come on.
That's a good point. But let's not forget Lynn Conway, R.I.P. There's a great picture of her later in life. Professor Emerita of Electrical Engineering and Computer Science. This is the obituary from the University of Michigan Engineering Department where she taught for many years. That is it for this show. We got games in. We got movies in. We had some fun. Did we get any movies in? What are you doing on Slash Film lately? I saw, I was watching... you still do Slash Film, right, Devendra?
I still do. Well, not Slash Film. It's the Filmcast podcast.
Filmcast,
not part of Slash Film.
No longer part of Slash Film. Because it was funny because I was watching, sometimes they have those movie ads.
The blurbs.
The blurbs. And I saw, something like, you must best see movie of the year. And it was Slash Film. And I thought, oh, you couldn't get the New York Times in there. Okay, fine.
I mean, listen, whenever I see those, I just see friends of mine from the film podcast or film journalism world. So I always love pointing and saying, we will never be there because we never feature podcasts in those blurbs. But you know what? Go check out Furiosa. It's in theaters. And I cannot believe Garfield, of all things, killed that thing at the box office.
Oh, no.
Furiosa is incredible. I've seen it twice in theaters. I hope to go back again.
Really? I haven't seen it. Oh.
You got to go, Leo. Just go. Yeah.
Yeah.
Support real artistry. Yeah.
Yeah, I saw Fury Road 3 times in the cinema.
I did
probably 12 times on video.
Yeah.
So I'm a big Fury Road fan. Furiosa is in some ways a better movie simply because it has a real story to flesh out with characters in it. And it's just, but it still has all the insane imagination of Miller that I watched it with my best friend. We just kept looking at each other wow.
This is incredible.
How does it think of this
Fury
stuff?
Road is amazing. I'll never forget the guy with the flaming guitar and the truck. And, there's so many moments in that movie that you just never forget. All right, I will.
The movie has a lot of great moments too.
I will go see Furiosa,
absolutely.
episode 776 of the Filmcast. Don't listen to it until after you see the movie. Is that right, Devendra?
Well, we do a spoiler section, so you can listen to half the review, and we tell you when to stop. But yeah, everything else we reviewed since then. Hitman is on Netflix, is incredible. That's the Richard Linklater film. Really funny, really sexy.
That was fun,
we don't really see movies like that very often, and I really like the newest Bad Boys. I cannot believe that they're making Bad Boys movies, and they're still good and fun and silly in the way the original, the first two were. Yeah.
Is Will Smith in it?
Oh, Will Smith is in it, and he gets slapped, of course.
He gets slapped? Okay, I'm in.
They know what they're doing with these movies. Yeah.
Okay, that might redeem it. Thank you, Devendra. Devendra Hardawar, when he's not on the Filmcast podcast, is editor at Engadget, and it's always a pleasure having you on. Good luck with the Kirby. Happy Father's Day, Dad.
Thank you.
I remember when you became a dad. Aw.
I remember seeing stories about your kids on Tech TV
when they were little. I had them on when they were little. They're 32 and 29 now.
Amazing.
Henry's book is coming out. It's already a bestseller. It's just amazing. It really is amazing. Great. Yeah, they were this big. It happens fast. Somebody said the days are long, but the years are short. Remember that, because it's over before you know it. Enjoy every freaking moment of it. I'm sure you do. You seem like you really are. That's great. Thank you, Devendra. Thank you to Dog Dad and good friend. It's always great to have Daniel Rubino on, editor-in-chief of Windows Central. Thank you for being here, Daniel. Anything you would like to plug? How about the Windows Central podcast?
Yeah, we do that on occasion. It's not been as regular, but we're still doing it. Other than that, pay attention to the site in terms of reviews
are coming.
New AI PCs.
Yes.
Yeah,
I can't wait.
It's going to be a very busy summer. Yeah, so we're very excited to see do these PCs live up to the hype and which one is the best one. I think they're all going to be kind of cool, but Surface Pro 11 I'm really intrigued by because of all the smaller changes they did. And will it actually last, a day? That's going to be, I think, the most important thing. And as far as movies, Furiosa. I'll also say I'm watching Dark Matter on Apple.
Oh, that's pretty. I watched the first one.
Ooh.
It's interesting. Yeah.
It's interesting.
Really interesting plot.
Yeah, if you like, deep sci-fi kind of stuff. Although that is the worst title. I don't know why they call it Dark Matter.
Bad title.
It has nothing to do with Dark Matter.
That was the book title. Yeah.
Oh, was it? But they could just called it Supposition.
Could have been anything.
But Joel Edgerton is just
he's
great.
really good. I like him as an actor.
Yeah.
Jennifer Connelly, Elise Braga.
Yeah.
It's a great
cast. Yeah, it's a great cast. Yeah. And it's just cool stories. And it's really kind of keeps you guessing. I'm actually they make it hard for themselves with the plot twists. I'm like, wow, okay, I didn't see that coming. But it's good. It's good.
And our Jesuit pilgrim himself, Father Robert Balacer, who stayed up late just to be with us. I really I'm grateful to you. JesuitPilgrimage.app is his new app. At Home on a Journey, available on Android and iOS. What else you want to plug, Father Robert?
Not much. It's been relatively quiet over here. Just a lot of the background work for getting out content for my big boss. I will be doing a couple of projects. I've got like 3 or 4 different irons in the fire right now, but they're not anywhere near releasable. I'm starting to discover all the things I miss about having the Twit production team behind me, because now I have to do everything by myself.
I know. We're trying to keep the production team together. That's why we have Club Twit. We're trying to. It is kind of a tough situation right now for all media, I guess.
Media.
I just saw iHeartMedia facing severe bankruptcy. They managed to get out of Chapter 11 a couple of years ago, and now it's looking like Chapter 22 is around the corner. Why? I mean, this is the biggest radio group in the country. Why? Advertising is off. It's down for everybody, podcasts especially. In fact, for most advertisers, the first campaign they cancel if times are tight is the podcast budget. So we're unfortunately on the receiving end of that, which is why, thank goodness, we started the club a couple of years ago. Club Twit is $7 a month. It's not much. And for that, I think you get a lot. You get ad-free versions of all the shows. You get video from the shows that we only put out in audio, including Hands on Windows, Hands on Macintosh, iOS Today, the Untitled Linux Show, Home Theater Geeks, a lot of Twit Plus bonus content, events. We got the book club coming up. That was fun. We did an escape box. That was really fun. And, of course, you get access to the Discord where Club Twit members hang, not just during shows, but all the time, talking about things geeks are interested in. There's a lot going on in the Club Twit Discord. Get ready. Here come the animated GIFs. Every time I show the Discord, they go wild. So, but the real reason, it's not all of those benefits. We like to give you something for your money, but the real reason is because that $7 makes the difference in keeping the shows going, keeping our staff employed, keeping the lights on. We are probably, because of a shortfall in Q3, going to close the studio in a month and send everybody to work from home. We hope to keep people employed, but the studio is a big expense, so we're probably shutting that down. I don't want to go backwards, so if you can help us out, I'd appreciate it. twit.tv/club twit. And for those of you who are members, my deepest thanks. It makes a huge difference in our future. So we thank you. Thanks, Father Robert. Thanks, Daniel. Thanks, Devindra. Great to have all three of you on. Thanks to all of you who watched the show today. We do it every Sunday, 2 to 5 p.m. Pacific. That's 2100 UTC, 5 to 8 p.m. Eastern Time. You can watch us. We stream everything we do. While we're doing it, you can watch on YouTube at twit.tv. I'm sorry, youtube.com/twit/live. After the fact, you go to twit.tv, our website, to download shows, audio or video. There's also a dedicated channel for most shows on YouTube, so you can watch the video there. Great way to share clips from a show. If you want to tell somebody about why Bitwarden's so great or what show they should be watching tonight, you can just clip that out on YouTube and share it with them. Of course, the best thing to do is subscribe, because that way you get every podcast the minute it's available in its audio or video form. Just go to your favorite podcast player and subscribe. 20 years we've been doing this. I want to do it for another 20 more, and with your help we can. But as we say at the end of every show, and I have been since 2005, another twit is in the can. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye. Oh, there's the can. It's cream of mushroom tonight. Father Robert's pulling an Andy Warhol. Thank you, Robert. I appreciate it.